tonight.
Yeah.
You got it as low as we'll go?
I want it as high as
Oh. Yeah.
I feel like 50
How was your weekend?
Very nice. Full.
Gary called you. Gary,
What's he doing for work?
the Oak Hills Financial. Gary,
That's on fun.
Oh, Bernard's County. Yep.
he said he was Carol Lean, I think it was. They shot his windshield. Right on the driver's side.
That's crazy. Wow. Blake Glean and Carol.
Yeah. I see, Chevy in the rock, he's wrong. He didn't even study this. He just said, oh, no, Martin. He said, he was kind of convinced that it was very hard. So I went and looked at it that day and I said, if anything was a Pelican, what is that? I know what a penetrator. But it did.
What he done?
Right there.
Oh.
Yeah, it's, I mean, when I say in your line of sight,
Yeah.
line of sight. I mean, yeah. Left and went straight to the PD and reported. He said,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I said, well, the main thing, you're okay.
probably.
No kidding.
You know, so.
She told me that. And then they can't take it. Do they fit in your training room?
Interesting. Okay.
Or maybe pull out your
Oh.
truck and have right there and put that apparatus in.
Well, the spring from and then goes to next week.
Sign up for public.
Well, I'll help you. I'll look. Yeah. Now, have you tried? You had ours.
Well, let's see, Crowley was one, Mertz was another, but it's better to err on the side of caution rather than, things.
Okay, Pastor Steve, would you please give the invocation?
Miss Mayor and honorable council and esteemed guests, I'm Pastor Steve Castle from Beloved Church. And I first want to read just a couple of verses out of James chapter 3. He was the first pastor and had incredible wisdom. It says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let them show their works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and jealous and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace." We want a harvest of righteousness in our great, great region. So, Father, right now we implore your wisdom. And we know that comes first through purity and through peaceableness. And these are the folks that have come here to make peace with the opportunities that you're making available to us. through the grace that comes from Jesus Christ alone. So, Father, right now, I pray godly wisdom over every one of these folks, that as they make the decisions that will affect us and even potentially future generations, that they do it from the purity and from the righteousness of a heart of a person that's committed themselves to serve the great people of this region. I thank you, Lord, that you have honored us with such great leaders, and the heart that's in them is driven by you. So, Father, we come together now through unity and the bond of peace, and in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Well, now that it's 6 o'clock, we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderperson Smith,
Here.
Busker,
Here.
Brashaw,
Here.
Keister,
Here.
Chesney,
Here.
Clem,
Here.
McClanathan,
Here.
and Ross.
Here.
And then next we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Smith.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Alderman Smith, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions for tonight's agenda? Seeing none.
Approve.
A motion to approve by Alderman Clem,
Second.
second by Alderwoman Bradshaw. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 5 on the agenda is public comments. Are there anyone signed up for public comments?
Yes.
2. I would remind those giving public comments to limit their comments to just 3 minutes per our ordinance. First on the list is Mike Lehman. Will there be another session at the end of this meeting? No, sir. At the Committee of the Whole, we post public comments at the beginning of the agenda, but at the regular business meeting, we have public comment at the end.
Yep.
I'm sorry, you have to go to the podium if you wouldn't mind.
And Alderman Smith, he can speak at the end if he chooses to.
Oh, we can?
It's the first is only on agenda items. The second, the last one is
Oh,
for,
I apologize.
Open.
Yeah, that is on the. I'll hold my comments till the end. All right, thank you. Next on the list is Joseph Green.
I'm going to read the email.
Very well.
It is regarding the airport, and it is from Joe Green. I will be unable to attend this meeting as it pertains to the airport. I'm a current renter at the airport and pay well for the hangar I rent. In addition, I utilize the FBO at Freeport, and over the last year have spent well over $25,000 in repairs and maintenance on my airplane and purchase all my fuel from Freeport Flight Service. I feel it is critical to keep the hangar rent at a competitive rate as it is today. I live outside of Lena and work in Rockford. My options are open and price/service driven. If I do not have competitive rent, my options are Monroe, Rockford, Sterling, and other private strips. Considering my work and home locations, they are all available and reasonable. Other consideration is given to the full-service FBO for fuel, service, maintenance, and annual inspections. The countryside is littered with airports that did not look to the future, parentheses, usually located to a dying town, end parentheses, and maintain a competitive edge of offering good pricing, full service, and opportunities for companies to locate at the airport. As far as the road project goes, I think it would be a sin not to match the grant to make great improvements to the airport, to expand the available corporate hangar space, and induce business to locate at the airport. This is evident with enterprises being located at the Monroe, Sterling, Platteville, and Rochelle airports, to say nothing of the Rockford Airport. I would urge you to consider the economic benefits that the airport supports today and to think forward to the opportunities that are available for the future. Thank you for considering my view, and please contact me if you have any questions or would like to discuss this further. Signed, Joseph Green.
Thank you. There being no other listings on public comments section, we'll move on to Item number 6 on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of November 13th. I think that was the Cal meeting last month. Are there any additions or deletions or any changes to those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Keister moves to approve.
Second.
Second by Alderman Chesney. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 7 on the agenda is a presentation in support of a new access road to Alberta's airport, presented by Daryl Jansen, the FOB airport operator. Mr. Jansen?
Thank you. I am the current, I gotta correct the FOB, it's FBO.
Yeah, it says FOB, but it's FBO. Yeah, thank you.
I can think of many things FOB stands for, but it's Fixed Base Operator, as it stands for. That's the problem with aviation, is there's so many abbreviations in here that it's hard to understand the language of it. But we're going through to present the information to the council as to what is available for our road project in here with funding from the state at this time, so that you have an informed decision on it to make here. Economic Development 2018, Freeport Alberta's Airport. We got a very nice picture of the airport laid out there with green grass instead of white snow. Okay, which bus? Page up. Okay, I forgot which button you showed me already. Page down. Okay, yeah, I was trying to go up. Freeport's Airport's mission statement in here. The airport would like to support the Freeport City's 2030 vision and mission statements in here. The airport is city property. It's the infrastructure, just like anything else in the city, and we'd like to see it proceed to help out the city, to help sell the city to prospective visitors, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. We have a quote there that the runway is the most important main street in any town. You need the streets, you need all the other infrastructure. The airport is the same way. 2030 vision statement, Freeport is a destination of choice. Our innovative city, entrepreneurial economy, and vibrant, safe neighborhoods support an abundance of educational, cultural, and outdoor experiences for residents and visitors. Our community is connected, accessibly, and welcoming. The airport brings in many people who are looking for business in here, are here connected with, working with existing businesses. 2030 mission statement, the City of Freeport is an engaged partner that helps foster entrepreneurial and vibrant city by providing efficient, moderate, and I got it blocked in here, services to our community and opportunities for growth for all. And then the airport is the gateway to the city, the creator of the first impression. When a company flies into Freeport in here and is looking to locate business or work on business, the first impression they get is what they see at the airport, how they're handled at the airport. Before they ever get into town, they have an idea of what to expect of Freeport. We try our best to take care of all the corporates who come in here that we can in here. But we have a new terminal that we want to work on for it opens up more bathroom space for the passengers when they get off, more waiting areas, more. A lot of companies would come in and would like to have a meeting room right there to hold their business rather than coming into town. So we're looking at locating that difference in here. And it's a strong regional and city asset. It benefits the whole area and through here. And it's the large asphalt runway with instrument approaches. It attracts business jets as large as we show here, the Gulfstream 650. We just recently had this aircraft come in. They were from California. They had made about 5 or 6 stops around the area that day looking at locating business. We got that much out of them. They're pretty secretive on who they are, who they're representing, The pilots told us that they could not tell us who was on board and what business they're looking at. But you think of it, okay, well, you know, they could have went to Rockford. Okay, they're flying in looking for business. They're stopping 5 or 6 different places that day. If they go into Rockford, it's an hour over here, an hour back, in between, you know, they may have bypassed Freeport totally if we didn't have an airport available for them. Yes, we don't have one of these come in every day, but that one day that they do can mean a big difference for the city of Freeport. This aircraft, it looks pretty good sitting there. Our runway, to take a picture of what that size is, our runway is 100 feet wide. This airplane has a 99-foot-8 wingspan. So it's pretty good size coming in there. That's one of the largest ones, you know, and of course, largest always attracts the most attention. We have other jets coming in on a regular basis. Not every day, not 2 or 3 a day, but on a regular basis in here to service grocery stores in town, banks, insurance companies. You know, they're all doing business here in town and do fly in. 3 runways attract many general aviation visitors and student pilots to the city. We show a picture there of our get-together of our beach nuts who fly formation. They get together here before they go to Oshkosh Air Show, and we bring in probably 30 to 40 of them, depending on which year, the weather that year, and they fly formation practice over here before they go on. All of this brings people to Freeport. They talk about Freeport. You know, Freeport is known because they're coming into town. The local FBO and maintenance shop attracts a lot of owners that overhaul and repair from all over the place. I get quite a few people out of the Schaumburg area. I got people from all over the place. In fact, with our Polish glider club that we had all the time in here, we get connections with them. I've actually repaired a extra 300 in Poland over the phone. So, you know, so you get known, and everything at the airport brings the information into and shows what Freeport is all about. The local flight school, a lot of people don't understand that we have people who are flying airlines that learn to fly here in Freeport. We have people who are flying the largest fighter jets that learn to fly here in Freeport. You know, so again, that information gets out and Freeport is known. The bottom line there says the airport generates approximately 5.4 million local economic activity. This is a survey that the state has done to show what indirectly is created by an airport of this size, and they're rolling over that 5.4 million per year is coming in indirectly. Now, you're thinking, well, okay, everybody that's in here has got motel room, eating, businesses going on. Also, you know, if you think of it, one business that locates in Freeport pays for the airport for a lot of years. We right now have, and I understand we have, you know, Snack King. They have nothing to do with the airport. But it was originally Vintner's Potato Chip Factory. Bill Vintner told me every week when he'd fly in on Tuesdays that that factory of his would not be in Freeport if it were not for the airport. Now, he's gone, Snack King bought him out, but it wouldn't have been available for Snack King to buy out if it wouldn't have been for the airport originally. So that's the kind of indirect money that we get into because of the airport. Wish I keep going the other direction. Airplanes are supposed to go up. I'm not going down on this. Okay, the Illinois Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration, federal and state government recognize the contribution of airports to the national, state, and local infrastructure by investing and developing the maintenance of the airport facilities. Recently, 2017, we've just completed a runway resurfacing project for $1.7 million. That's grant money that we had to match by 5%. The nice part of that is that originally the airport built, we originally took grant money for the runway, and part of that agreement is we must maintain it. If we don't get grant money to maintain it, we must maintain it under our own dollar. So we just received $1.7 million that a local contractor got the bid, did the business, and that money rolls into Freeport many times. 2016, we had the self-service fuel island, roughly $16,000. Again, we only paid 5% of that. That money is still due, I believe, next year or so in here to roll back in. So it's coming back to us. We fronted the money, but it's coming back to us. We got pictures there of the new terminal hangar. In September 2014, we had a windstorm that damaged the main maintenance building. We got enough insurance money that we coordinated as far as we could to get as much done as possible. By doing so, we were able to cut down a little bit of size on the maintenance hangar and add a lean-to on the side of it. I know that doesn't sound right, lean-to, but in here, but it's a very nice facility that will house the new terminal. The new terminal does many things. First, it gives us the site of first in the main terminal in here. The windows are looking right down the center taxiway when the aircraft come in. They'll know where to go to. It also creates safety. We, for many years, have had a terminal building that is on the ramp. You've got to walk through the secure fence, past the fuel pumps, to get to the terminal building. Now, in today's market, in here, when you put up a secure fence, you've got basically three types of people. You got the one, and they walk on through it. You got the one, I'm not going through that. It's a very unfriendly area for someone who doesn't know the airport to drive out to the airport and come to the terminal. We've got signs up, but a lot of people won't read the signs in here. So this puts it right in the parking lot, and then when we finish off this terminal building, you'll be able to walk right into the terminal building. It protects the safety also, where you have doors that can lock out to the terminal, from the terminal to the ramp. So it's a very big project. $600,000 was all insurance money. The city did not put a dime into this rebuild. Okay, as far as city airport integrated revitalization, okay, it creates a first impression for visitors. We'd like to complete the terminal facility. We need a visibility of road traffic. Right now, prime case of tonight, we hit the snow here all of a sudden. I still got a boy out there plowing. I started plowing along with him. We got the airport open. In fact, I saw an airplane coming in as I was driving out. But as we drive out, Airport Road and Lamb Road out of there is not plowed. So the airport's open, the road isn't. We need a road, access road. The Baileyville Blacktop, when I got to it, it's plowed, sanded, salted, and it's open in here. So it's kind of like, you know, if we got a road we can't get to the airport, that kind of creates a poor impression also. So that's one thing that the new road project would do for us. We need to expand on the airport commercial activity to make the airport services, establish investment perspectives. Again, the road, and I'll wait until I get to the next program, show you where the road is. It opens up for our economic development. Right now, we're pretty well locked in and we don't have no place to expand to. The other part, if we go over here, we're going to improve airport infrastructure, power and sewer. One thing with the road project in two is we're only paying 10%. We know that it's going through our existing sewer field. The sewer field needs updating. This project will help update that. So it's kind of like you look at, you're getting our 10% we're paying for this whole project, we're getting part of our sewer system fixed also for that. That's going to, sooner or later, going to cost us money directly. The vehicle access is also part of that South Road project, as I talked of. So we're looking at maximizing the hangar revenues, fill the hangars, give us out some incentive and advertise. The road gives us that access of visibility. Unfortunately, if we would have been along an access from Route 20 many years ago, you wouldn't recognize that airport today. But being hidden out away from an access road has greatly hurt the expansion of that airport. This at least gets us onto a main road for an entrance, so it gives us visibility. So here in this last picture, you can see where this location is going to be at. You can see the red triangle there. That property we own, have owned for quite a while. We're leasing it out back to farmers right now. But you can see the red line in here. That's where the road comes in from, and it adjoins the Baileyville Blacktop just about right across from the entrance to the trailer court out there on Baileyville. Once you come into that entrance, and then it's going to curve all the way around and connect to the existing entrance, so it'll be a circular all the way around. You can come in either way. It gives us better access for emergency vehicles. If we have to have fire response for an accident out there, it's going to be a lot easier getting them in off that Baileyville Blacktop coming in and again coming around through Airport Road. It gives us the visibility of an entrance to the airport. There's a lot of traffic coming up and down the Baileyville Blacktop. We can advertise at the end of the entrance in here that we can't right now because nobody goes by it. The whole red triangle area right there then opens up for our next economic development. We have it lined out there for, it's set up for about 400 by 100 hangars. We can modify that to anything. And your access road comes right into the backside of the hangars. A business can locate there, have access out the front side to the runway. Right now, we're locked in. We don't have that access to grow. In the past years, we've had two different businesses we've talked to of trying to get over from Rockford. We've tried our best to try and fit in an area for them, but while in the negotiations trying to make it fit, we lost them. So again, if this would have been ready, we might have had a chance. So we have to be prepared for it. The project has been on the books for about 9 or 10 years. We were just ready to go. All of the land was purchased, and then the next year we were going with the road project, and the state shut down all funding on their end. So now we're told that they've had funding available for the last couple, 3 years, and they just finally are going to release it, and we have that option again. But it's only one shot. As far as I'm told, it was like by June, if we don't let them know that we want the project, that money goes away, never to be again. So we have this chance now at $1.1 million from the state for our contribution of $110,000. So it's like it's now or never, or we're going to set out here with nowhere to go for economic development. And on the last page kind of shows that state funding is available now for a limited time. So we basically got a 5-month period. Your airport is integral to the city's vision. The road project is critical to developing an airport. The state has approved an investment of $1 million into the local area. And it'd be sad if we didn't capture that investment while it's available. So main things out of there is we gain visibility from an access road, we gain an area for economic development, and let's face it, $1 million for 110 that's probably going to a local contractor and rolls back in through the city and the region is a pretty good deal in itself. So that's my program.
Thank you, Mr. Jansen. Any questions for Mr. Jansen from the floor?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Clem.
Darrell, the triangle that's out here in red that you said, what's the approximate size of that?
Let's see. There's 2 farmers that own that, 23, 10, probably about 35 acres.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Keister.
With your indulgence, I have several questions for Mr. Jensen. First of all, looking at the map here, if we didn't do the project all the way to Baileyville, you would not be able to put a road in there just to access it from the current terminal where we're at?
We could bring an access road to that area from the north down to it. Biggest thing that doesn't do for us is it doesn't give us the access to three-phase electricity off of Baileyville Road, natural gas off of Baileyville Road, fiber optic phone line off of, you know, it makes infrastructure so much easier bringing in than bringing it north down through the airport. In fact, three-phase wouldn't even be available. I just talked to a customer today, or the other day in here, that would like to move his manufacturing business in a hangar along with his airplane. And when he mentioned that we didn't have three-phase, well, I got to have it. I said, well, this project will allow for that. It's right there. They just put new lines in, coming right up past that part of the road.
Okay, if I may continue? Sure. On the average, Gerald, do you have an idea of how many jets or corporate aircraft come into Freeport?
It varies so much. You can have, the end of the fiscal year for them, and we can get one a day in for, a week or so, and then all of a sudden you don't see anybody, and then and then you get another company that comes in. I'd have to estimate that roughly, we probably for a year, you're going to get 50 to 60 real easily on a normal year of traffic.
Okay, and due to our proximity to AirVenture up there in Oshkosh, what kind of impact does that have during that period of time on Freeport Airport? Because I know that there are a number of aircraft that stop in for fueling, and if I remember correctly, last year you had a World War I twin-engine bomber that was landed at Freeport on an emergency landing with an engine out, and was there for some time for repair.
Right. He came in, left Texas, heading for the air show in Oshkosh with very few hours on engine overhauls and restore, and they were going to be the end thing that year. And he had an engine he had shut down, didn't make it. He had his option of going to Madison or Freeport, and they turned around, and actually Madison was closer. They turned around and came to Freeport because they knew they could get services there and keep the airplane there better. They kept it there, got it fixed. The next year they went to Oshkosh. So again, that crew has told everybody about the hospitality that they got at Freeport. And we had just finished a new hangar, so we had room that we could get them inside. The Oshkosh air traffic, it changes every year with what the weather's doing. If we get weather between Freeport and Oshkosh, everybody will stop at Freeport, fuel up, check the weather, set out and make sure that things are okay as they go out there. If it's really clear or the weather's just bad just past it, they may bypass for that. We've kind of gotten into a group of from Texas that stop every year, and it's a very large group that come through in that.
Okay, and just finally, more of a statement than a question. Do you have any idea on a daily basis how many aircraft come through Freeport on a touch-and-go basis for training and stuff? I know from my own personal experience, we were up there and we had to play tag with one the other day when we were doing touch-and-goes. Do you have any idea just how many other aircraft use this airport for training and stuff?
Well, it's, there again, with the weather threatening, we had one in today, because of the weather's threatening, the snow coming in and everything else, so that slows up. And then the next day you've got everything in, and it's so busy in the pattern you can't get in. We've got a traffic count of operations that's approximately 20,000 per year.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Busker.
Yes, Darrell, you mentioned on your way out of here, out of the airport to come here tonight that the roads going to and from the airport were still snow covered. Who's going to maintain this road once it's open? Because all the roads around there are either township or county roads. So
this road will be on airport property, so I'll maintain it, or the current operator at the time maintains it. So the only thing you have to worry about is Baileyville Road itself, and that's a county road. So yeah, the airport that or the road that you're building will be maintained by the airport.
Mr. Chair?
So there again, I'd rather not have this project because I got to plow snow off of it, but you know.
Alderman Clem.
Did you have anything? This could, Darrell, this could be either for you or for Lowell, either one. The 1.1 million, is that currently based off the engineer's costing of it, or is it an old cost, or is it new, or do we have a clue?
That's based upon CMT's recommendation going forward.
Okay.
They have not yet, they've done the preliminary design work, but not the final design work. This is state bid money, unlike the other one that's federal, so it would be quicker towards bidding. So they were going to start, and I put a freeze on it until we've had this discussion and figured out, start working on the septic field as we go.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Alderman
Chair.
Chesney.
Sure. Darrell, how long has the existing road been in place?
Existing road
Yeah, the point of travel, has it been there 50 years, 10 years?
since 1945 when the airport was open. It's the original entrance to the airport.
If I can have a few questions, sure. Is there anything in snow emergencies that prevents the city, yourself, any arrangements that we could work out with township or county to clear the existing road? What is the, for the few snow events that we have, what prevents us from stepping in and helping out?
That would be a possibility. It's a township road from Silver Creek that comes by it. So, yeah, so you could step in and help out with that, but it still doesn't give us the visibility or the main entrance that we need.
If you were to look at corporate travel, corporate jets that land on the runway or that use this airport, how many businesses, local businesses, use this airport for corporate travel?
It's hard to say who's using what anymore. It used to be the corporation had their own jet. They were very proud of it, had their corporate logo on it. You knew exactly who was in town. Today, everyone is a fractional ownership in here. So you have NetJet, FlexJet, and a few other ones in here that you pay in so much and you're a fractional owner of all of our jets. You need something to come to Freeport. If you got 2 people a day, you can get this one, you can get that one, and then they balance it out. So you never know anymore who actually is on board. We have, I know Save-A-Lot Grocery Store comes in all the time. They do have their own jet. We have the upper level of, comes in for Cub Foods. Trying to think of some of the other ones offhand. Of course, Newell and Micro still do come in, but not anywhere near like they used to. We have a lot come in that are traveling over to Lena for the ethanol plant, and then the other ones, they come in. Sometimes the pilots will let us know who's on board. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes the pilots don't even know who's on board. They're just flying a group. So it's hard to tell anymore who their actual corporation is.
And does that travel increase as a result of this road, or would that corporate travel be consistent regardless of this project?
Well, it could increase if we bring more business into town because of the expansion of the airport and that. We could get a corporate down there that wants to build a hangar and put one of these corporate jets on the field again. It's a possibility. Directly, the road probably doesn't affect the corporate travel into town. It just makes it easier, more efficient, shows more of that first impression when they come into the airport. But I think the road does present a fact that we can have economic development that will help fund the airport more than what we are now.
Sheriff, I can continue.
Alderman Chesney.
What economic indicators are you seeing in the city of Freeport, Stevenson County, Ogle County that suggest this project will stimulate economic development versus an increase of demolitions, an increase in local road improvements, sidewalks, et cetera? What are you seeing that we're not seeing? Income is, median income has stayed the same or gone down. Appear to be at full employment, but then again, wages aren't growing. But what are you seeing in the airport that suggests this project will stimulate economic activity?
Okay, so the things you all mentioned there, your demolition and your roads, yes, those are definitely all things that are needed. You're doing a great job at that. Presenting the city with, again, that person who's coming in to locate a business in here. So by improving the airport, we're doing that same thing. We're just adding to that, making it more visible for that corporate to come in. We have, a hard push on it at Rockford, again, for expansion over there that I've been working with businesses for years that I say, if we had had this project 10 years ago, we probably, we had a very good chance of having them here. That is coming to be again. So a business that has, is not major, someone who has 5 to 20 employees, that's a great business to get at the airport. So that greatly increases that effort.
And a company that has 5 to 10 employees is going to have a corporate jet?
They can have we have a company, well, they don't have it personal, but the companies that I've looked at have that type of clients who come to visit them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Brasher.
Thank you. Mr. Jansen, I just want to talk about the cost analysis of the septic field. You mentioned the septic field, it would be included with this bid that would possibly be covered by a lot of the state funding. What is the age of the septic field at this time?
Old.
Old.
Unknown, really. It's been in since, it hasn't been updated for 50 years.
May I follow up, Chair?
Sure.
I have a few more questions. Okay, based on the age as old, in your estimate, when would this have to be repaired or replaced by? So the potty
It
flushes.
should be looked at right now.
And the reason I'm asking these questions is if we have to look at this, have you had an independent cost analysis of just the septic field?
No, we have not, because we were looking strongly at getting it repaired along with this project. So we haven't had an individual cost. We will once the project goes forward, but it'd be hard to hazard a guess on my part at this point.
Mr. Chair, Manager Crow, in your estimation, I don't know if you've ever done a septic field of anything close to this size. What perhaps would be a roundabout cost for something like this?
Well, I'll actually rely on my 2 experts here.
Well, I've never had to deal with septic fields except at my personal residence.
Yeah, that's the only thing. I've never used a septic field here. And the septic field here, it's based upon the size of the restrooms that are available at the site. So I'm not sure how big a field it actually is.
I hope you just tolerate me a little bit longer. I'm just looking at the cost of the septic field alone. If it was close to that $100,000, and we have state funding to do a lot of this road repair and replacement, I have no idea what something like this would cost.
I don't believe a septic field would be of that cost. I mean, but
I know we were looking at, we put in our last hangar, there is a lift station there. They was looking at a septic field at that time, and we were talking about the $40,000 range.
One more follow-up, please.
Certainly.
Thank you. Would they allow, like, the local municipality to do in like kind funding for that match? Manager Crow?
not for aviation, no. That's it. It has to be a funding source, budgeted. We have to get a commitment from the council before they'll start into the work for the $110,000 as we go forward. Initially, there was a commitment letter that they had forwarded that Mayor The previous mayor had signed, but it had not come in front of the council. So,
I understood that part. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Keister.
I realize we're under a little bit of time frame on this, but we do have a little bit of time. What would it take to get an estimate on the septic system, or get an idea what that would cost before we make a decision on this?
well, I can get the engineering firms, also working with Director Kapansky and the Public Works Director going forward to talk about this. We may be actually able to do some of the work internal within this, because I know one of the things we're looking at from a separate side point is, we're not going to talk about tonight, but we are looking at septic field at another location in the cities for the Tuddy's Crossing, and we were looking in the area of about 17,000. So for a restroom at Tuddy's Crossing.
If I may follow up.
Certainly.
Would it be possible to get a rough estimate on the cost by next month for this? Bring back to us?
My professional experts are saying yes, so.
Okay, yeah, I would appreciate if you did that, because I think that would help knowing what that would cost us, because we're going to have to do it anyway. And I agree with what Alderperson Bradshaw says. If it's going to cost us close to that anyway, maybe we want to consider doing it and get the extra benefit from it.
I do have a question. You don't have three-phase at all out here?
No, we do not.
Okay, so the electric vault and all that is run off a,
Yep, that's all single-phase electricity.
okay. Where is the three-phase coming into here?
Well, as I just put the program up there, by the road, I mean, they just ComEd just put new lines in from the south coming up Baileyville Blacktop, so it's right, right by the runway there out on Baileyville Blacktop right now. They buried it past that, and I'm not sure where that comes up there, but it's right there at that entrance.
Okay. Darrell, I will ask you to share the business with Nancy McDonald that talked to you about coming into the hangar, because this is the first time I'd heard we'd had a business come in that would looked in here, and we could have rolled into that estimate for running three-phase out there as well into that, so.
Yeah, and that's someone I just talked to the other day in here. He was talking about that, and he didn't even have a clue that we didn't have the three-phase. It's just kind of talking, oh, you don't? Well, that changes things. Well, we're working on that.
So when you get time, if you could share that name of that business with
Definitely.
The Economic Development Director.
Unless somebody has something else, I have just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Mr. Jansen, you said that the red triangle is currently city property, the city owns that?
Correct.
And what about the road extensions? Does the city own that
Between the
property?
red lines out there where the road will go, yes, we own 100-foot wide right there, a strip all the way through. So all property for the road is owned already.
Okay, so the $1.1 million doesn't include any cost for land acquisition?
Correct.
There wouldn't be any eminent domain issues related to this?
Correct.
The hard surface runway is the only one there suitable for the jet landing, the likes?
Oh,
of
yes,
which you-
yeah. The other two are grass runways in here. They're shorter runways in here, so the smaller aircraft can use them. And we get a lot of, the antique airplanes that have, a tail wheel rather than a nose wheel. And they'll come over to Freeport to practice just because we have that available in here, so.
Are there ever occasions where jets have to divert or the wind direction is unsuitable for them to utilize the airport?
Oh, sure, that could be a possibility. Right now, with our instrument approach, they can get down to 200 feet above the ground. At that point, they gotta be able to see the runway lights, and they got a minimum of a half-mile visibility. If they don't have that, they have to divert.
But I mean
Rockford has a better approach than that, but these corporates don't have that type of instrumentation for them, so they would be limited to the same numbers at Rockford as what we are at Freeport.
Do you know how many of the city-owned hangars are currently occupied, currently rented?
We have roughly 64 aircraft hangars available for rent. We probably, in my last report, and I'm always a month behind coming in through there, but roughly we have 14 open.
Do you have an opinion as to the rates that we charge for the rental space out there?
The rates are well in the ballpark on the upper end of what other airports are around. And I always hear well, I can pay more for a storage hangar, in town than what I pay for an airplane hangar at the airport, but it seems to be the going thing. Also, I pay more to have my car worked on than I can charge to work on an airplane. It seems to be an industry standard. The airplanes will go through, and they can locate anywhere. I have customers that come to me for maintenance, but they're based in Sterling, Whiteside County Airport, because the hangar is cheaper.
Anything else from the floor?
If I could, Mr.
Alderman Clem.
Gerald, one quick thing is, as we look at the red triangle here, the 35 acres, the road would really be an asset, I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about going up there. My question is, if in that 35 acres, do you intend to use any of that in the near future if there's not a road there?
No, because without a road there, we have no way of getting the land traffic to it in here. So it's blocked. You can put a hangar there and come out and have the airplane come out to the taxiway there, but there's no way of getting anyone to be able to drive to that hangar.
Okay, no.
Yeah, without the road.
Okay.
Now, we could add a road from the north and extend that down there, but again, that would be totally on our dime. We
That's
wouldn't
right.
get any grant money to help with it.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair.
Mayor Miller.
Darrell, just got a couple of questions. At the bottom of one of your pages here, you had that the airport generates approximately $5.4 million in local economic activity. I know that you did not gather that data, but can you possibly get us where that comes from?
Oh,
and
sure.
how those numbers are arrived?
Sure.
Okay, great. And then second, I'm going to challenge you to think outside the box just for a minute. It would be an absolute shame to lose a $1 million grant because of $100,000 that the city doesn't able to come up with. Because quite honestly, our infrastructure within the city would take priority over infrastructure somewhere else. I mean, it's just a priority issue. But that doesn't mean that we have to limit ourselves. Just like when the fireworks came to us and wanted to have these things met, and it wasn't priority, it wasn't that we were anti-airport, it isn't what they were anti-fireworks, it just was about where this funding comes from. So when the fireworks committee stepped up and they raised all their money, we had a fabulous show. And so I want to just challenge you to think outside the box and see if there's any way that you could form a committee, and I see you got about 10 people here that probably would put their hand up to be a part of that, to say, you know what, let's figure out how to make this happen, whether we have to fundraise, whether we have to get donations, but how can we make it work? Because to pull it out of our budget is going to be very difficult. So, and the council could very well do that, but I don't want it to stop it. I would hate to lose $1 million grant, but I just want to challenge you to think outside the box. So, okay?
We can definitely look at it and give it a try, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Jansen?
Chair,
Alderman Clanathan.
thank you. Just had a couple questions. And when you were talking about the three-phase in regards to the infrastructure, I recall seeing, I think it was last fall, where they were coming up Baileyville Road.
Right.
Are you saying, you said go ahead and bury it at some point, but are you saying that if it gets to the point where you hit Baileyville Road on it, there's not going to have to be anything else done to get into that three-phase?
I don't know that for definite. I just talked to ComEd when they were doing the project. We talked about where it had to be buried because of obstruction of the airport, and we briefly talked about what the project was. I don't think there is anything else, but I can't say that 100%.
Okay, follow-up, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And there's kind of two phases to your presentation tonight. One, obviously, kind of in regards to what is the benefit of the airport in general, and then two, in the road project. I don't have any questions on the first one, but continuing on the second one, you mentioned, all right, so we got about 50 of 64 hangars full, give or take a few, at this time. What specifically, when you're talking about economic development opportunities from this road, what specifically are the types of things that you're looking at and you think could generate from this outside of what we have at this time?
Well, if we would generate, the federal has opened up things now to where we can have other than airplane hangars at the airport in here, where it was kind of limited to aviation-based only. Now we can have another type, they've made it easier as for to get a production company out there in here, which that's what I was just talking to a customer here. So this project does open that up for a company who wants to put CNC machines in here, and a manufacturing company in his hangar and have his airplane in there also. So the road does open that project up, because again, we don't have a large enough area for that, and we don't have the infrastructure for it.
The last part of what you said there, because I've seen the hangars, but I don't understand, all the workings in regards to them. So you'd anticipate that type of development being on the 35 acres that you're talking about?
Right. Because we can get the main, well, there again, if we can get the project and complete the sewer system, now we're going to work on the well system in here, because those businesses have to have water, and we're too far away for cities, sewer and water. But at least we would have all the basics in, so each one of those companies would have their own restroom facility. We would make it large enough for that would be ahead of the game. Whereas existing hangars, again, we have nothing. We'd have to put septic system in ourselves in order to get them to work it out.
Follow-up, Chair?
Yes, Mr. McLennan.
Thank you. As you know, we have a variety of issues that the airport's looking at and tackling, and we have to prioritize them.
Right.
What about this project do you believe gives us a better return of investment if we were to prioritize this over some of the other issues that the airport's looking at in the near future?
I think this is probably the most important one that we have out there right now, because without it, we're just stagnant. We aren't growing. We don't have a spot to go to. We can have someone come in and say, hey, I want to put your business in here, and we don't have a place for them. This is by far the most valuable project that we have looking at us right now.
One more, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, so if I'm looking at what you currently have and what you're talking about, the potential opportunities, is it, again, pardon my language, because I'm not sure of all the language here, but when we're talking what we currently have, those hangars and that opportunity is more for individual pilots, for planes, things of that nature, whereas you would anticipate more possible business-related hangars and things of that nature on this new area that you can't do with the current 64 that you have?
Correct. Yeah, the new area would definitely be looking at corporate, some type of business, because we would get the infrastructure built down in there that would be very difficult to put into an existing hangar. And also all of our existing hangars, if someone were to locate a business there, we can't get the automobile traffic to them. They can't drive, we can't have the individual UPS truck and everything else driving down the ramp between hangars to get to a business. This opens up, they can put their business in, drive to it, and stay off the airport ramp area. So yes, it opens it up for businesses. That's the main reason why we would want that, not for just aircraft storage.
Mr. Jansen, are you aware of another airport similarly situated, maybe of similar size, that has exploited a space for this purpose, where somebody has located a business there?
It's hard to say on that. I mean, every airport is different. We are probably, one of the larger sized general aviation airports in the state of Illinois. The only one that really compares with is Sterling. They have room available and they haven't used it. Anybody else is smaller than us, doesn't have the traffic available to get the corporates in. That's a big one. We have the availability to get that corporate traffic in of any size that wants to come.
But you mentioned earlier, like, as an example, I assume CNC manufacturer who could locate there was, and earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that you were approached by somebody who maybe visualized moving his business there alongside his airplane. Is this the type of manufacturing that this person does?
Right, and that was the one I was talking about in here. He already owns an airplane, already has a hangar on the airport, and he'd like to move his business in there and combine his airplane and his business. And I just found out about that just a couple of days ago.
Any other questions from the council?
If I could, just one.
Alderman Clem.
Daryl, in the hangars that you've got, are all 64 rentable? When I asked that, you and I both know there used to be some in pretty humble shape there.
We've got, our 10 oldest ones are, we call the slum district. They're roller doors that you gotta push hard to get open, but they're also rented at a reasonable price. So you're always gonna have those people who want that, because they don't wanna pay the larger price in that. So it's a 10-unit hangar, and there's been many times where it's come up, they wanted to tear it down for an improvement somewhere else in the airport, and I said, well, it's not going to get us anything other than just tearing it down. So it's a small amount, but we might as well have rent from 10 hangars as to have none. So the other hangars, we have one that needs to be repaired before it's rentable. It was a post in the end was rotted out, the hangar was settling. We've got enough to repair it that it's stable and no problem, but in the meantime, the hangar door is settled, and it's below the floor level. But I can't see spending money on repairing that until, it's a quick fix when we do need it.
Sure.
But other than that, they are open and available.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on, but are there any last questions from the council? If not, thank you, Mr. Jansen, for your presentation and for your time. And with that, we'll move on to item number 8 on the agenda, which is
Thank you.
a presentation regarding the audit of sales tax receipts the city receives from the state of Illinois. And the presentation will be jointly presented by Tom Fabian of, is it Azavar? Azavar Audit Solutions, and our own finance director, Randy Bucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to let Tom do most of the talking, but just to bring council up to speed a little bit, I've been in discussions with Azavar Government Solutions for a couple months now to look at our sales tax receipts that we receive from the state. One thing that Azavar does is they go in and they audit the municipal receipts that we should be getting from the state to make sure that we are getting the correct amount and get the proper credit. And that would be for anything from 3 years past to the present and any future taxes. Anything that they find would then be, we would then make an appeal to the state, and then they would, if they found our favor that we were correct, they would then forward those additional monies to us. At the current, yeah, well, I'm fine. At the current time, Azavar would keep 45% of whatever they find over a 3-year period. But they're working with a couple other municipalities in our area that our charge would be 40% rather than the 45%. I think Tom's ready to give his presentation, so I'll turn the rest of the time over to him at this time.
Thank you, Randy. I'm so glad that I'm here as an advocate for Azavar. As I hear you talking about raising $100,000 for some repairs or some economic development. We're here to help municipalities maximize revenue and take no municipal staff time, which is huge. I am from Azavar Government Solutions. My name is Tom Fagan. I'll talk a little bit about our company. We've been in business since 1996. We have 40 staff headquartered in downtown Chicago. We have similarly situated cities in our portfolio, such as Galena and Rockford. And we're technology based. So we have an audit team as well as a technical side. So all our proprietary software is proprietary to us and only us because we've developed it. It kind of grew out of a municipality asking, I don't know what I don't know about my utility taxes. So ultimately, when the municipality gets that tax revenue in from their utility, whether it be ComEd, Nicor, Ameren, Comcast, you're getting money in from them, but you don't know for sure if they're remitting each and every household or every address in your municipality to that municipality. IDOR sends out all their information out by UPS postal address, which is not the most prudent way to make sure that Freeport is getting each and every dollar it deserves from each and every address. So we have proprietary software, which I'll show you in a little bit, screenshots of it that will show you how we actually mirror the provider's database and your database, water billing or GIS, and making sure that each and every address from the provider is correct. And it's that geocode that's after the zip code. I use the example 60629-1234. That 1234 is exact. It's not your code, but it would be a municipality code. We do see a lot of miscodings by providers. They don't keep up with annexations, and there's a lot of times where on the outskirts of town or you're sharing zip codes with other municipalities that they get cross-matched. Like Randy said, we are doing a consortium with a couple other municipalities, so we're able to offer a 60-40 split, which is the best in the state and even better than we normally do for a single municipality at 55-45. Remember, biggest thing, you say, Tom, we don't want to do this, leave, and it'll cost you nothing. You could do it, and it could still cost you no dollars. It's peace of mind. All we're asking is that you share with us what we find for you for 3 years, and then it's annuity and perpetuity for you 100% after those 3 years. We will do a revenue audit of all your pertinent streams of revenue that are apropos to your municipality. So we're able to do these audits in an agile form within approximately 6 months from the time you sign the contract and sign the non-disclosure agreements and get the information from the provider. We're able to see results in about 6 months. I am the one that does the updates every 90 days, so there is somebody like me that's giving you an update on where we are in every phase of the audit. We have 15 auditors, of which I do electric and gas. So there's somebody working on cable franchise fees, electric, gas, water, electric, sales tax, food and beverage, if it applies, Airbnb, your hotel and motel. We're bringing Airbnb to the table now. They have always said that they're the, nothing to see here. We're just the platform, but you're supposed to be getting tax revenue from that source as well. So we're bringing them forward as well. This just talks about our as of our experience. Ultimately, what ASOVAR wants to do is get out of the business of auditing, de-auditing the audit. So we've done the revenue maximization program for a very long time, and we have best practices, and we're here to help your economic and your constituent support to make sure that you're getting every dollar that is owed to you. But we have presented to Randy as well. We have a monitoring and management that is starting to play a part. Joliet will be our first online as of January 1st. We're very proud of this. It'll be, they're mandating electronic remission of their taxes. And so we're working with them and being the lowest cost provider for revenue management. And that's in the areas of hotel, motel, food and beverage, motor fuel. Making government more customer centric, making it easier for a taxpayer to pay because they do want to pay correctly. This takes all the paperwork out of it. It's, Tom the clerk taking the check, taking the piece of paper, now I've got to deposit it. That takes all the clutter out of it. It also brings on people that want to actually do business and do it correctly with you. You're making sure that people are remitting correctly, and by doing electronically, you're ultimately going to get that compliance and being above board in all areas. You know, if you have pieces of paper out, you get into IT concerns there, and ultimately by doing it electronically, you work smarter, not harder. So within the program, very simply, Randy brought this up, we can go back in most areas of revenue, you know, could be 4 to 6 years in some cases. It's very hard to get the back taxes because the provider doesn't keep up their end of the bargain with how they're keeping up their paperwork and electronically doing their thing. But we do go back for them. Another benefit of the program is we have our own legal team out of Washington that we use at our dime. So it wouldn't be using your attorney time. We would be negotiating with the provider to get those back taxes at our dime. Another thing is we assume all the risk. So ultimately you might say 40% is a lot, but we assume all the risk. We might look and it might be all clean, which is peace of mind, so that when Tom Fagan, resident of Freeport, walks in and goes, why did you raise my food and beverage tax by 0.25? You can say, we did this ultimate screening of all of our revenue, streams of revenue, to make sure that we were getting everything that's due to us. And then ultimately the future savings add up to the total recoveries for the municipality, which is the 3 years. There's 2 separate payments, so if we were to find back taxes, it would be that same 60/40, and then going forward, it would be a monthly billing of each address. Another thing within that process, we don't start getting paid until we know you've started to get your revenue that you're supposed to. So we're the conduit between the provider. We have over 175 municipalities, so when they see as of our coming, they go, oh, here's the process again. We know what to do. And basically, we work with them to get those addresses correct. We use a person within your municipality, say Randy, to let you know which addresses are going to be corrected. And then ultimately, we give you a verification memo, exhibit by exhibit by exhibit, of all the communication between the provider and ASAVAR and Freeport, if there is any, to show you what's been changed. And then ultimately, we give you the information to send to IDOR and say, IDOR, please make sure these are correct because these weren't remitting correctly from the provider. So we're kind of the conduit person between all 3. I'm going to briefly go over this slide. This is a kickoff and initial review. We set the expectations, we align the streams of revenue. And our intake process is no more than 4 to 8 hours. It's 1 day. We come down from Chicago, we OCR any information. If it's more electronically based municipality, it makes it easier. But we need a table, we need a chair in that conference room. You lead us to the file cabinet, we scan everything, put everything back with the staple where it was. And ultimately, we've done really, really good work in streamlining that process over years and years. Ultimately, this process would not work if we're using municipal time, and that's the feedback we've gotten from municipalities, which has been very helpful in the years preceding, or in the last 5 or 10 years. We analyze the data, and then we give our findings and recommendations to you, which basically shows you what addresses have been changed, and then recover funds, which is the money that's due back to you, and then talking about managing future revenues. In our presentation to Randy, we did a cost analysis of over 10 years and found that Freeport would, it's probably $8,000 to $10,000 a year for a total savings about $87,000 a year by us managing those form streams of revenue electronically. Big one, I love this slide. I love the no smoking sign on municipal staff time required. Very, very huge. We know that municipalities have been stretched. Illinois government has taken 2% of your locally administered taxes, has taken 10% of your LGDF, wink, wink, for this year. So we're here to help municipalities maximize revenue that they're losing on that end. And ultimately, maybe that airport redo of $100,000, we can give some money back into that to help you realize the dreams of that as well. The utility tax, these were all the streams of revenue that we identified were things to look at within Freeport: electric, gas, telecom, cable franchise fees, food and beverage, sales tax, use tax, amusement tax. We have a bilingual customer service staff. When you're dealing with managing these streams of revenue, the municipal constituent, whoever needs to ask questions, would be doing it through us. We'd be working on behalf of Freeport, which takes some time away from your FTEs so that you can use them somewhere else, maybe in economic development, instead of I'm taking the piece of paper, I'm taking the check, I'm depositing the check. They can be doing other things within your municipality. This is, if I could have a siren go off when I put this up, I would. This is a microcosm on the left. It's a blown up version of the right side of the page as you're looking at it on the screen. This is an electric audit that we did for a city in Illinois. All the reds were miscoded by the provider as not in their database or unincorporated, which meant that the municipality did not get that revenue until we identified that. And that was probably, that's just a microcosm. When you're looking at all those reds, it's probably 200 to 300 addresses. When you're thinking about addresses and how much they cost, when you're thinking of residential, you're thinking $2. When you're thinking commercial, industrial, you're thinking $5 and $10 an address per month, which can add up. We found major savings downstate where a provider miscoded a total municipality incorrectly. So you might say, we're a town of 6,000 or 11,000. How much are we going to get? You don't know until you get in there and see what it's like. So there's no, if you're 11,000 population, you're going to make $20,000. It's whatever, that's why we assume all the risk going in there, saying, seeing what's right and what's wrong on their database. And this is our proprietary software that's proprietary to Azavar that gives you the address, and the analyst gets to look at, based on the provider database and your database, and then third parties that we also employ. We find out whether it's place, it's lane, does it have the correct zip coding, and if it's not, then it ultimately becomes what we call an exception or error to the roles of the provider. And then talking a little bit about what I was just going over regarding our municipal revenue program and managing. Ultimately, we have vision that if I'm Tom Fagan and I owe six tax jurisdictions for 6 Motel 6s, I can go into this one application and be able to give my money to Freeport and to Rockford and do it in all one-stop shop. And that's ultimately what we'd like to see happen. And that's going to take time, but it's a great thing to be able to do business electronically. The other sales tax application that we showed Randy as well was it's a sales tax analytics tool. Lowell and Randy get CDs from Illinois Department of Revenue. Some municipalities look at me when I present and go, a CD of what? There's a reciprocal agreement that you sign And ultimately, there's few people in the municipality that can look at this revenue. I've been told for some municipalities, I sold to Princeton, I'll tell Rachel Skaggs, she goes, this is great because all I do is throw the CD in the drawer and I do nothing with it. Ultimately, this CD, you're able to put into this application, collapse, combine, look at your TIF districts, look at your top 10. So it gives eyes wide open to the municipality to say, where are the gaps and trends in remittance? What's Joe's Hardware doing down the street? This last trimester, he did $100 per month, and now he just did 20. Is his business struggling? Is he remitting correctly? So that's another form of software that we have, and that's for a minimal cost per year. I always say if you're making money on the audit side, that can fund that software. If not, but it's under $2,000 for the year, and I'd love to give a demonstration if anybody would like to see it at another time. But it's really good. Instead of having, I always go having the eyes closed and my hands out and going, thanks, but you know, I don't know what I'm getting. This will give you eyes wide open to say, I can budget every year. I know what to expect from my businesses going forward. It also gives compliance. And ultimately, when you see all these businesses on your rolls, there might not be a business or two that's not on your rolls. There was a community downstate where it was a big provider of tax for them. And all of a sudden, the next quarter, they looked at it and went, why did our tax revenue dip? Ultimately, IDOR, it came off of IDOR's rolls, which meant the money did not get to the municipality, and we had that re-put into their rolls so that IDOR had it correctly coded to the municipality. These are the local filing and remittance. Like I said, hotel, motel, places of eating, food and beverage, revenue assurances, like I said, reporting and monitoring, tax enforcement. And ultimately, you're getting out of the audit business and you have electronic data to say, this is correct and we can go forward. You know, when we used to do these audits, we'd do them and the bleeding would stay stopped. Now, ultimately, doing this electronically and using these tools, you can keep the bleeding stopped if there's bleeding that is going on. These are just features of the software. I think I've gone over a lot of them, of which monitoring and analyzing remittance data from IDOR. We exceed all security requirements. As a third party, we can't look at the data. This is a cloud-based encrypted system, so even if we wanted to look at the information, we can't. It would be only be able to be seen by the people that are on that reciprocal agreement with what we call a YubiKey. And if anybody's heard of a YubiKey, it's something you actually put into your computer beside your sign-on. So if I got Randy's sign-on, I still couldn't see the data because I don't have the YubiKey. And even if we tried to encrypt it, where we are in ASVAR, it would come out gobbledygook. We wouldn't be able to see it unless they had the YubiKey and the sign-on. We also have a tax rebate administration module, which we worked with Collinsville last summer and successfully implemented a electric rebate for low income and elderly. So that was a big success story for us in 2017. Like I said, bilingual customer service representatives. The local tax administration module increases compliance, it reduces the number of your audits, and it trims weeks off of getting your monies into your municipality, which is huge. The sales tax analytics helps you collect every penny of sales tax, and it allows you to monitor the business health of your municipality. So why ASVAR Government Solutions? More than $80 million history of recoveries. We support local government organizations. We are very much out there in all forms of community government. We are involved with communities of government all over the state and have a big presence there. Like we said, we have over 175 communities, mostly in Illinois, but Texas, Colorado, California, Indiana, Michigan, Missouri. So we have a lot of history in very many areas. We collect, we catch, we correct, and we monitor revenues for the municipality. We ensure compliance. It's a big, big, big thing with municipalities. We make sure that businesses are being compliant and doing everything they can in regards to remitting their taxes to you correctly. We have best practices, so if you did want to go electronic, just like Joliet is, we have best practice ordinances from across the country that we use to help the municipality in that area. We enhance relationships. We're not here to knock on any doors of any businesses. We're going to give you the information. So, and we work with you in the municipality to make sure that we're working together as a team. And we think of that, the contract really only states, about the 36 months, but we want to be here to be a resource for the municipality when they're in need or when they need something. We work with economic development to help grow your municipality, which is key nowadays. It's almost like a recession for governments right now. And we specialize in local government without conflict of interest. So questions, I'll open it to any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Bradshaw.
thank you. Thank you for all the information. There's a
very
lot
welcome.
here to digest, and it is much more understandable now that you've gone over it with us.
Great.
I see your company's been in business almost 21 years, or in the 21st year now. Primarily, my question is regarding what you recover and how you charge us for that. I'm a little confused. Do you charge us 40% of what is collected or what you catch?
Of what we catch. So and let me explain a little bit more. So I might have not been totally specific, succinct. When we do our billing, so like I said, it's probably 9 months out from when we start. Until we give you verification that an address has been changed, I'm just going to use 123 James Street. We're going to give you a revenue verification memo to show you each and every address that was changed. What we do is we ask the provider for a 2-year average of that address. I'll just throw out $2.43. So on the bill, the first bill that goes out, 1 of 36, 123 James Street, $2.43 for that address, we're going to take 40% of that addresses of that $2.43. At the end of the year, which we're in it right now in the fourth quarter, we do a true up with actual bills from the provider to make sure it was $2.43 and not $2.48. So we're making sure that the dollar amount that they gave us as the average is correct.
Follow up.
Ms. Brescia.
Thank you. Well, my concern here is we often know that there's monies owed, but collect them is quite a big situation. Certain things, like you have, like hotel and motel tax might be cut and dried, or something with Cablevision, or I don't mean to pick on anybody, one of the utility companies. But if we're talking about small private business, and perhaps we already know, it might be a lot more difficult to collect. So 40% of what's caught compared to what's actually collected is what concerns me.
And I guess caught and collected, I'm trying to differentiate what you mean, because, if you're talking about sales tax, that's a different total entity and different process. We're giving you the information regarding whether, and basically we work with the municipality for the sales tax because we can't look at it. We're just looking at an address list that we ask you to request from IDOR, and then we use our third-party database as well as your roles on your side to make sure that each and every address is remitting. And we're basically making sure that every business is remitting. If it is not, then that's where we put that back on the rolls, make sure IDOR has it correctly, and then get that money to you.
So I'll give you an example. One of the things that happened, like previous community, Shopko in our local area changed hands. and it was then owned by an LLC out of Wisconsin. They took it off our rolls, and we saw a $150,000 drop in sales tax. They went out and helped us identify that and brought that back onto the rolls through going through our IDOR database. What they collected was the amount of money that we got back onto the rolls, 40% of that amount of money. They didn't take that money until we actually got it back onto the rolls.
Exactly.
Chair?
Alderman Chesney.
Thank you. So walk me through the process. If you have identified an address that doesn't match or you feel that somebody isn't remitting, what's the next step?
So we have processes with each and every provider that we ultimately, after we get done with our analysis using our geographic area tool, we identify the exceptions or errors. So just going to throw out a number, 100 addresses are incorrect. We're going to send those 100 addresses to the municipality to tell them that we're sending them to NICOR. So NICOR has a process with us, over 175 municipalities in, that knows we deal with that person at NICOR that comes back and goes, 75 of those were incorrect. We've changed them, and gives us the data that they have changed them. Then we might go back and forth about the 25 other ones because we do coroner analysis thing, and making sure that the provider has done their due diligence to make sure that those other 25 are correct or they were incorrect. So we go back and forth. At the end of the day, 75, let's say 82 were correct. Those 82 are the ones that we are going to send you a verification memo that shows that they've been changed and that they should be sent to IDOR to make sure that they're on their rolls.
Mr. Chesney.
Chair. Well, let me try asking the question a different way. So
Okay.
who has contact with our businesses? Is it you or us?
You. I'm going to give an example. So, so when you're dealing with all the audits of all the utilities, that's different than the sales tax. So we have one person in our office that works just on sales tax. We're dealing with Randy or we're dealing with Lowell in regards to, information about your businesses. We're not, like I said, we're not knocking on Joe's hardware door at all. We're just dealing with the municipality and what we find.
So you'll never have direct contact with our business?
Not unless you want me to. I'll give an example. Midlothian. We just did an audit. I live 5 minutes from Midlothian. There was 3 businesses that weren't on their rolls. They asked us to go in, and I went in a suit and tie and asked. One was an optometrist, and I said, do you have your business license? He didn't. He had something from the Illinois Department of Revenue, but I said, well, you sell glasses, correct? And he's like, yes, I do. And ultimately, we got him a business license. There was another business, a restaurant in Midlothian that wasn't on the rolls either. So it depends on how the municipality wants to work with it. We won't do anything the municipality doesn't want us to do. So it's not a matter of us contacting businesses. That happened to me once because I was the one that was the conduit to Midlothian, and they knew me and said, would you please do this, on our behalf?
Yes, sir.
So it looks like Dixon recently hired you.
They did.
Okay, and their reviews online were kind of a mixed bag. Some said that you yielded results, others were of the opinion it was a lot of work. If I was to look from using their numbers from 2006 to 2011, it looks like that you've recovered about 12 million. You said you worked with 175 municipalities, which would make the average about 65,000.
Right. Like I said, you don't know what you don't know until you get in there and do that work. Some municipalities might be disappointed because it didn't yield anything because everything was in order. We can't make up because I like you, I'm going to give you $10,000 a month. The results are the results are the results.
I wonder, Mr. Fabian, though, is there ever an occasion, or have you encountered an occasion where the tax was remitted, but IDOR made a mistake and remitted it to the wrong municipality, and, what the process is for correcting that, and retrospectively, what is done to correct those missed revenues.
Right. And so you're saying it was missed, it was,
Particularly in sales tax, I would guess.
right. So are you saying it was misappropriated to Freeport, that it shouldn't?
And it should have gone perhaps to another municipality.
We're looking just at the businesses in Freeport. If we do find something like that, we're going to bring that, it's within the contract that says we're going to bring that information to the powers that be in Freeport, and they will do what they want with that information.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Fabian? Yeah, Mr. Chesney?
In the contract, if we were to agree to this, let's assume you present this information to the city and, given the information, is there anything that compels us to actually go after the dollars in the contract?
No.
Meaning, do we have the discretion
Yes, you do.
unilaterally to say yes or no?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And then what would be your opinion of because essentially you're a private auditor, right? So you come in place where the Illinois Department of Revenue maybe falls short, right? So you're a private auditing firm that's on a contingency base. So those that have worked with you, would they be of the opinion that this is disruptive to business?
It is not. And like I said, we've learned that over the years. 10 years ago, I would probably say we were a lot more disruptive to government, or to the government, coming in, scanning documents, using somebody. But as our processes have gotten better and more streamlined, it's been a lot easier for us to, with our OCR staff that we have of 3 people that walk in, and we, like I said, we put everything back in the file cabinet with the staple on it without anybody knowing that we were there, and it's a very, very quick and painless process.
And the businesses would agree it's a quick and painless process?
Well, we don't deal with the businesses. I mean, are you saying your businesses within your municipality?
Well, yeah, because I would look at your firm as a private auditing firm, so we're obviously trying to seek revenues that we believe we're missing. However, you're the private IRS, right? So you're going in and randomly, or given some metrics, going in and auditing our businesses. And I guess I would just ask if the yield average is $65,000, to which you take 40% of, I guess I would just question, is this the best use of our time and resources going after what appears to be a relatively small amount, given what could be seen as very disruptive to our business? And I guess it's more just general policy rather than a question for you. That's where I get a little hesitant.
Right. I think within our practices, we're not disrupting business. We're giving you the tools to use to grow your municipality, grow your economic development. I would say we're not disruptive to business at all in that the way you stated. No.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Clem?
I got to figure I just had to ask this.
Okay.
If I have a owner of a bar and grill at -4 Main Street, for example, and it shows up that he's paying tax, do we know if he's paying tax or if he's paying the proper tax, or how does that come out?
Right. We're not calculating whether it's the proper tax or not on sales tax. We're making sure that they're remitting, because ultimately we can't look at that data. So if we find 3 businesses that are not remitting, we ask the municipality to give an average of what they get back, because we can't say, what did Joe's Hardware do down the street? We can't do that. We have to work with the municipality to see what funds they're getting back.
So, can I do a follow? In this, do you also look at government funding or anything like has the state properly paid us as expert,
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, you answered my question on the other one, so thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Busker.
Yeah. Trying to think how to ask this. When you do go in, say the utilities, like say your cable company is on my bill every month, I see there's a municipal tax on there. If that's not already going, if for some reason it's miscalculated and it's not already going to Freeport, where is that money going when the customer is paying it?
Correct. If it's unincorporated, it's not going anywhere, number one. And miscalculated and going to the right municipality are two totally different things. We're just making sure that the municipal tax that you're paying is going to Freeport. So it might be in their rolls as unincorporated, which means then it's not going anywhere, or it's going to Rockford, for example. And then ultimately, we're making sure that we're shifting it to Freeport from Rockford.
And that's prospectively or retrospectively? I mean, do you go back a certain period of years?
Right, we can go back 4 to 6 years, except for telecom, which is the moment you find it. And with sales tax, that's also has a statute of limitations. You can't go back very far with sales tax, but the rest you can go back at times 4 to 6 years.
I'd like just some clarification on Alderman Chesney's question. So you arm us with the information to correct the remittance of this tax, but we're under no obligation to take action on that? What about your 40% of that?
Well, in regards to like the address, I mean, it's something we've never been told that we don't want that dollar amount, because you're not dealing with your businesses or your people that live in your town. You're dealing with the provider that miscoded the money. They're getting their money. It's miscoded by the provider.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Clem.
let me ask you about your optometrist.
Okay.
You know, not that specific one, but Joe Schmo's got a glass business, and he's selling glasses for $600 a pair, okay? What if he has been collecting it and you have not been getting it? Or, you know, what do you do in a situation like that? Though I love I love the whole basis of how this works. But I could easily see where it could put us in a difficult position with some people. Does that make sense?
Right, and ultimately, that's for Lowell and Randy to determine. We give them the findings, and they determine what they want to act upon. We're just, in regards to that was a one-off type of thing that the municipality asked us to do. In our normal practice, we're just asking, we're checking to see that each and every address is on IDOR's roll that's on your rolls.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Director Bucus.
can I ask Mr. Fagan?
Certainly.
Tom, with the sales tax, if somebody's been paying, but it has not been coming to the city, and we find that mistake, the state of Illinois then will correct that, and so the person's been paying right along, but now he'll be paying us. And the community that was getting that tax money will now be deducted up to possibly 3 years, that we would get reimbursed that money back. So we're not creating any new additional taxes on the person, it's just that we're making sure that he's paying it to the right community.
And never in our existence have we said, Freeport, you owe money, or Rockford, you owe money. It's always money back into the coffers of the municipality.
So you're saying that's not a double-edged sword? If you find in the opposite direction?
No.
Chair?
Alderman Chesney.
So if you have a restaurant that is remitting, you're not actually comparing that to, you know, the cost of goods and you're just simply seeing if things match.
Right.
So you're doing
Being
a
remitted
very,
to Freeport.
you're doing a very surface level audit.
Correct.
And then it's incumbent on our staff where we want to, if we choose to dig, I guess, if you will.
Exactly.
So you're just looking for businesses, you're looking to see if just things
Our
line up.
copacetic, yes. In regards to sales tax, yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Fabian or Director Bucus? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Fabian.
I just want to thank you guys so much for having me out tonight, and I look forward to, as of our maximizing your revenue. Thank you.
So for council's information, this is not going to be on the 18th agenda. My plan was to put it on the first agenda in January for approval as we go forward. So if at that point, that'll give you some time to get us, Randy and some feedback on what your feelings are on this.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair?
Alderwoman Bradshaw.
Thank you. I had a question for you, Manager Crowe. Will we be able to see the actual contract? I'm sorry? It's in our packet. Okay, thank you.
And with that, we'll move on to item 9 on the agenda, discussion and approval of collection contract for collection services with Municipal Collection Services, presented by Tom Knoll of MCSI, and once again by Director Randy Bucus.
Mr. Chairman, been looking at how we can increase our collections. I've talked to 3 different agencies about our debt collections, and we are currently using Northwest Collections for our ambulance service. And former Fire Chief Scott Miller thought they were doing a decent job for them. However, after talking to them and another company, I'm recommending that we utilize Municipal Collection Services for our outstanding utility bills and parking fines and other collections that we need. One of the reasons I'm leaning towards them is their record, and also because the state of Illinois has what we call the LDRAP, some called LDRAP, some called iDrop program, where you can put a lien on somebody's income tax return if they owe you money. It's a very cumbersome process to go through. We really don't have the staff time to do it, so we really haven't been doing it in the past, where MCSI has a program that we can download that would help us start using that collection service as another way of collecting past due bills and stuff. And then I'll turn the rest of the time over to Tom Knoll.
Mr. Knoll.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Knoll. I'm an account manager for Municipal Collection Services out of Palos Heights, Illinois. I was invited this evening to discuss the services that we can offer to the city of Freeport to assist in the recovery of some of the outstanding debts. Put together a small presentation here, a little information on our company, goes over some of the services that we provide. If there are any questions you have, either during the presentation or afterwards, feel free to ask them and I'd be happy to answer them. A little bit about our company. We were founded in 1992 as a municipal-centric debt collection agency, and part of this arose from a partner company that we have. Our partner company is called Municipal Systems, and they provide adjudication software to municipalities so that they can hold local hearings for tickets that are issued for things like parking and compliance and local ordinance violations. And so what ended up happening was our founder started this software company and had municipalities begin the process of adjudicating these tickets locally. And so as these municipalities had these hearings and the tickets went through the entire process, all of a sudden they found out that people weren't paying those tickets. And so then the next question became, we've had the hearings, we've done everything we can on that ticket, what can we do to recover those fees and fines? And so as an additional service, Frank Regan Sr. founded Municipal Collection Services so that after those tickets, utility bills and things of that nature become collections eligible, we'd be able to assist them with that. Currently, MCSI is servicing over 85 municipalities and counties throughout Illinois. We are the largest municipal-specific collection agency in the state. We do also have clients in Indiana and Iowa as well. We provide recovery on parking and compliance tickets, local ordinance violations, which are generally the quasi-criminal police matters such as underage possession of alcohol, truancy, things of that nature. We also provide collection services for building code violations, photo enforcement violations, which are red light cameras, things of that nature, as well as utility and ambulance bills. Some of the staff for MCSI consists of Matt Regan, he's our CEO, Frank Regan is our CFO, and he is the local debt recovery program manager. As Director Bucas had brought up, it's one of the services we offer that I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a few moments. Desiree Budzinski is our collections manager. She handles the day-to-day operations of the collections floor. She has over 25 years in the collection industry. She has been with MCSI for, I think she just hit 12 years now. She has an assistant of Joanne O'Brien. She's the floor manager, so she's the one who's kind of assisting the collectors if there is, let's say, a debtor offering something less than an acceptable margin for collections. She would come over to either give approval or contact the municipality if it's lower than 50%. The collections floor is manned by 24 full-time collectors. We do have 3 bilingual Spanish-speaking collectors and 1 bilingual Polish-speaking collector. We also have a support staff for the collectors. That's headed by Kayla Ariza, and she's assisted by Sue, Kelly, and Barb. The support staff is there when there's interactions that need to happen between the municipality, in the case of a debtor requesting a ticket copy or something of that nature. Kayla and her staff will reach out to the police department or utility billing department to get a copy of a bill if something like that is needed. So a lot of times we're asked, why should we partner with MCSI? The biggest reason is the collectors that we have working for us. One of the leading mantras that we have for them is that we represent the municipalities, and we get them to think every time they're on the phone with a debtor, even though they're working for MCSI, they are a direct representative of the municipality that they're attempting to collect those debts. Another reason is, compared to general line collection agencies, such as maybe a Northwest or an Armor, because we focus on municipal debts only, we're able to achieve higher returns than those general line collection agencies. A lot of times, collection agencies will rely on mailing a letter, maybe making a phone call once a month. Our focus is to call the debtors, explain the existence of that debt, and work with them to try and get that debt resolved. All of our collectors are specifically trained in the administrative adjudication process, and so they know exactly what's happened with these fees and fines for them to become collections eligible. This helps us establish that dialogue with the debtor to explain what's occurred with this ticket, why it's been placed with a collection agency, and what some of the possible outcomes could be if they don't do anything about this outstanding debt. Because of that focus, once again, in municipal collections, we're also able to provide services that are tailored specifically for these types of debts that other general line collection agencies may not have the expertise or the ability to provide these services. So some of those specific services go to something like driver's license suspension monitoring. The state allows for an individual to have their driver's license suspended in the case that they've received 10 unpaid parking tickets or 5 red light violations. This is something that we monitor as the debts are placed with us. When a debtor has exceeded one of those thresholds, we will notify the municipality. We will provide them with all of the paperwork for the entire suspension process, which would consist of the 45-day notice and then the actual paperwork to suspend that individual's driving privileges. This is done on a municipality-to-municipality basis. You can elect to suspend someone's driver's license if there are extenuating circumstances for one individual. You can elect not to send that paperwork on. So those things are entirely up to the municipality and how they choose to pursue them. If the municipality handles boot and tow, where a vehicle receiving a number of tickets, most municipalities started at about 5. If an individual receives 5 tickets or more, they become boot eligible. MCSI will work with the municipality to ensure that the individuals that are being booted and towed are individuals who should be. If they've established a payment plan or something of that nature with us, we would notify the municipality not to do a boot and tow. The local debt recovery program that Director Bucas had mentioned, we actually monitor and provide all of those files on behalf of the municipality. So what will end up happening is we would send an email to a representative for the municipality. They would take that file that's attached to the email and upload it to the state. That's the only step that the municipality is really involved in on a hands-on basis, is anytime they receive an emailed file from MCSI, is they have to upload it to the state, and that's because the comptroller's office requires that any files provided to the state come from the municipality. We can also assist municipalities with amnesty programs. We've done quite a few of them over our history over the past 25 years, so we can actually work with the municipality to let you know what has worked best in the past, timelines that are best to handle an amnesty program. Certain times of the years are better than others. We also monitor bankruptcies. So if someone did list the city of Freeport on a bankruptcy, we would monitor that case. And as that case goes through the process, we would stop collections on that account, monitor the case, and then once that case is done, we would be able to attempt collections on that debt all over again. As Director Bucas had mentioned, we handle everything for the local debt recovery program. What this is it's a program offered through the comptroller's office that will take an individual's outstanding debts that are with the municipality. Those debts get placed with the state, and then the state will watch out for, there's 4 main payments that they keep an eye on. One is an individual tax return, lottery winnings. If the individual is a state employee, they can offset their payroll check, and state contractor payments. So if it's a business who has done work for the state and the comptroller is going to issue a check, they can offset those fees and fines and pay them back to the municipality. As I mentioned on this, MCSI does all the heavy lifting for the local debt recovery program. We provide all the files. The state will notify the municipality of various matches or payments that'll be remitted to the municipality, and that will prompt MCSI to take the next step in preparing files for anything that is listed with the local debt recovery program. And so that's kind of the 30,000-foot view of our company, some of the services that we offer. If there are any questions by anybody, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Knoll from the council?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Keister.
I guess the main question is, what is the cost of this service?
There are no upfront costs to the municipality. MCSI assumes all of that responsibility. We are compensated only after a recovery has been made. There's 2 options available to the city, both laid out in the contract. The first option is a standard commission base, where if a recovery is made, we're paid a percentage of whatever amount is recovered. There's 2 ways that the municipality could be paid. As they're enrolled in the local debt recovery program, a payment could come from the state. In that case, the commission rate that we quoted was 12% of anything recovered through the state. And anything recovered through our efforts, our calling campaigns and things of that nature, are 32% of anything recovered. The other option that the city could elect to go to is the state allows municipalities to include the cost of collections into the debt when it's listed with the debt collection agency. So in this case, let's say we have a $100 ticket, the collection agency can add in 35%, and so the debt would now be $135. If a full recovery were made, $100 will go back to the municipality, $35 will go to MCSI. On the net, that percentage comes down to 25.93. And so those are the 2 options available to the city, both laid out in the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chair?
Mr. Chesney.
So if we have an outstanding balance of $2 million in this case,
Sure.
what's your historical average for water and sewer collections? Do you collect 20%, 30? I mean, there's got to be a.
There is. And the thing about collections is it's kind of a gradual buildup, if you will. Through the first year, the average tends to be in the high single digit to low double digit, so anywhere from maybe 7 to 11%. Over the second year, you tend to see the high teens, maybe low 20% range. And then come the third year, we've kind of hit full stride where we've tracked down some of the individuals. We've been able to have conversations with them. And our average across the board, all municipalities that we do collections for, comes out to a little over 25.1%. Now, using our collection efforts in conjunction with the local debt recovery program, those percentages can actually go up. One of the accounts that I provided Director Bucas with some information on was Chicago Heights. Chicago Heights provided us a little over $800,000 in outstanding utility bills. To date, and we've been with them on the utilities for a little over 5 years, we're just above 51 as of last month. We haven't gotten the numbers for November, but through October, we're a little bit above 51%. And that's both our collection efforts and recoveries coming through the local debt recovery program. Now, they've also been with us for over 5 years on their utilities, so it's not like we hit that number overnight.
Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Brash.
Thank you. In the contract, I saw that if we agree with this as a council, that we authorize you to negotiate debt percentage owed by certain individuals. Does that happen very often? And if so, how do you negotiate that down specifically?
Sure. It's a tool that's helpful, especially on older debts. If you can, offer someone, we can settle this at 75%, 60%, whatever that number is. It's something that helps to recover something that previously had gone unrecovered. The contract lays out a 50% kind of low point. Anything below 50%, we would have to contact the municipality to accept. The collectors themselves, anything under 2 years, they can't approve a less than full settlement without a manager's approval. The factors that could come into that could be something where someone says, look, I have $160 on a $200 ticket, and I'll give it to you right now. If we've placed 50 phone calls to them and every time they fought us on it, maybe at that point 160 is better. The municipality can elect to set those parameters. So if the 50% listed is lower than what you would like to see, we can adjust that number to something that the city would be more comfortable with. Being that the utility bills are something that a service was provided, setting a settlement number very low may not cover the costs associated to the city with providing that water. So if there is a threshold there, we can approach it on an account-by-account basis, meaning parking and compliance tickets, local ordinance violations, building code violations, utility bills, and set a threshold for each one of those. Because, like I say, with the water bills, you guys already have incurred a cost on that. And so if you know that you don't want us going below 75%, we can mark the accounts in that fashion so that we don't.
Mr. Chair, follow up?
Ms. Brashna.
Thank you. This is just actually a comment on what you just told us, and I am in agreement with you that sometimes you need to do that. That we have a number of poor individuals in our city, and sometimes it isn't that they don't want to pay a bill, sometimes they just don't have the funding to do so. They have negative assets, or they're, I don't know what I would consider judgment proof in some situations. They just don't have that income to cover those additional costs. So sometimes it is a good way to consolidate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the floor?
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Busker.
Yes. In your past experiences with the municipalities, how much time and is the municipality going to take answering phone calls or complaints or anything when the collection calls start? Because I can just see where that would start that, oh, they're calling and collecting, and I can call this person and get it, you know?
Sure.
You've seen a lot of that?
We do. Sometimes, if you think of the reputation that some collection agencies may have, or the industry in general, everybody's heard horror stories about collection agencies calling to threaten and take them to jail, garnish their wages, things of that nature. We don't take that aggressive approach. We try and work with the debtor to explain the situation, what options are available, work with them on payment plans if that's what works for their budget. Municipalities will receive phone calls because someone could say, hey, I got this letter. And the letter that we provide is called the Dunning letter. That's kind of the industry term for it. It's a letter that states what the debt is, where the debt originated from, who it's been placed with, so in this case MCSI, how to contact us, what the balance on that debt is. Sometimes people see that notice and go, how do I know this is legit? And so they may contact the municipality and say, are you partnered with MCSI? I received this letter about a debt that I owe. I just want to make sure this is, you know, on the up and up. The municipality, we tell them that we'll do as much work as you would like us to. If someone calls in and says, well, what can I do about this bill now that it's in collections? If the municipality wants to have someone talk to them and work with them on it, that's entirely up to the municipality. If you elect, once it's been put into collections, that you want us to handle everything moving forward, we can do that as well. So it is something that I'm sure the municipality will receive phone calls on. A lot of times it's more of the, I want to make sure that this is a true, you know, debt collection agency. This isn't some mail phishing scam, if you will. Sometimes they may get upset if they receive a phone call because they thought they were going to get away with it, and now they're getting called about the debt. We do record all the phone calls. So if anybody ever says anything like, this individual spoke to me in an improper fashion, all 28 of our collectors have every single call recorded. So we can go back, see who the individual was.
Excuse me, Mr. Nolan. I wonder, Mr. Crow, can you give us some perspective about the scope of the uncollected debt that's owed to the city?
Yeah, we're close to, what was it? I think it was 1.4 million currently in water bills. And to answer this stuff, so you're away, and we have another, what, 100,000 in ambulance bills, and probably another 100,000 in liens that we have not collected. But on a given week, and I don't know what the fire chief deals with in collection, on a given week, we are already dealing with 8 to 10 hours, if not more, of time dealing with phone calls between Director Krapansky, myself, Director Carr, Director McDonald, and Diane, Dovey. But any one of us probably average 5 hours a week dealing with citizens, because we're already in the process of leaning all of those properties that are owner-occupied properties and liens in there. So we're already dealing with that amount of time on the staff. And then we've talked in detail with, and that's not even counting Steve Cox. Steve Cox probably spends 15 hours to 20 hours a month handling with collections with us. So that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with in trying to get the liens out there and done. And this is a way that we can go before we have to get into the lien process.
Chair?
And if there is one thing I can add to what you just said, when you're liening a property, just so you know, those debts for the local debt recovery program can't be placed in there. The other thing is that the city can elect on a debt with a lien to either place it with us or not. So I just wanted to get that out there after you had kind of made mention of that.
Manager Crow, what can we do ordinance-wise to prevent this from happening? So, for a number, I mean, obviously this didn't happen overnight, and this grew over, you know, probably a decade or more, but what what ordinance, because there's got to be something that triggers this. Because we never see it.
No. So right now, Director Kapansky and I are working on the water ordinance. We are so it basically, from the time the first water bill is not paid to the time we actually shut off the water is almost 90 days.
But we changed that.
We have not changed that yet. We are working to get that changed. We're rewriting the instruction. We have both come from municipalities where your first unpaid bill, there's a notification process you have to go through under the state, but you send out the notice as soon as you have the bill. If they don't pay it within 10 to 15 days, you then shut the water off. But our ordinance needs to be modified to do that. We have not yet done that to the ordinance because we want to get our handle. We did not have a good handle on what the outstanding liens were. And some of this comes from the fact that the Water and Sewer Commission was separate from us, and we've now brought them in. That's one of the reasons we wanted to hire the junior accountant to track some of these accounts, because we don't have a good feel, and Tom's been very active in dealing with this. We did not have a good feel for what the process. The other problem is we have a continually a buildup of infrastructure fees, and what happens is on those infrastructure fees, if the property is getting ready to be sold, we'll remit a portion of that when the property, so that we can get the property back on the tax rolls. So we won't make and so that's how we've been collecting this money. There was not the Water and Sewer Commission was not actively liening properties, actively sending out notices. We have sent out close to 400 notices in the last 90 days to owner-occupied homes that have outstanding bills. And we have seen a slow trickle of, when I say we're collecting about 10 to 15% have started to come back in. I think that's accurate, have started to see that money. So it reflects basically what you're hearing is that we're starting to see that where people just are coming in and paying their bills. The other thing is we are actively pursuing a payment process when the bills are where they have to pay 60% up front, or it's 40% up front. Is it 40 or?
Well, no.
Yeah.
Let's see, it's 60%.
60% up front, and then we go from there. So these are all procedures we've taken. So the next step is hiring a collection company to help us go through this.
So we're reconnecting water with payment of 60% of what's owed in arrears?
So they have to pay the reconnection fee plus set up a payment.
60% of what they owe?
They have set up a 3-month payment plan is what they're doing.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Clem.
Okay. There was some revamping done of the way the water and sewer bills were done over the last couple years. The only thing I'd personally ask you to do is we need to take a look at this and set up an proper ordinance like you're working on. But the other big part of this is, keep in mind, there's always this indifference between landlords and tenants about dollars and cents and who's paying water bills and what. And we're going to have to take the attitude, and it's not nice, but guess what? We're going to have to shut them off. You know, when you can take and transfer from this person's name in the house to this person's name in the house to this person's name in the house, and eat up 2-3 months in each one of those, the only one that loses is the city of Freeport. Just, you know, I would think we're on the right track here, but I think it really needs some work to do that properly, but I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Bradshaw.
Thank you. Back in 2007 and 2008, if I recover, I wasn't on the, excuse me if I recall, I wasn't on the council then, but I do know that they had some revamping of that, where people had to bring in their ID in order to have the water bill put into their name, because prior to that, they were putting it in the name of children. They would give a social, they would just call in and have it done. and there was a lot of illegal tampering with IDs and things. So they did start running it more like a business in that one era, but there again, that was probably about 10 years ago. And we did talk about it. I think I was a planning commissioner back then, about making people more responsible and doing things a certain way. And we were told at the time that they were going to make sure people paid on time, and if not, they're going to turn it over to collections. I had shared that with Manager Crow before. I believe that was in 2008 or 2009. I don't think that ever happened, though.
The bills prior to us bringing the Water and Sewer Commission back under city, they were not being turned over. They were neither being liened or being turned over to collection services. So it took us basically 3 months to determine how bad we actually were. And then we've taken an aggressive procedure to lien them, working with Steve and Diane and Denise. And then when Tom got on board, we looked at it and said, all right, we've got to rewrite the water ordinance so that we're shutting off at a much earlier time. And that's going to be, you'll be seeing that in January timeframe. And then we also, the collection agency was something that Randy had talked to me, because they had success with the ambulance bills. And one of the things it's doing with the ambulance bills is the fire chief was looking at it and realizing that we had some older indigent people, and realized that we were not targeting them. What we were doing was we were targeting the younger, making sure that those bills were paid, because the issue on the older generation with the ambulance bills is we were having problems getting payment from Medicare. And so we were not going to we did not go after them as aggressively through a collection agency. And that really, fire department was the first people that we actually set up a collection agency with.
Be nice to us older people now.
So, Mr. Crow, when are you looking for action on this issue?
We think it'll be good to put this on the 6th, on the first agenda state for the agenda for the approval. That'll allow us to get our process in order. Plus, at the same time, we're going to work and get the water, the ordinance finally put into place, to be proposing that to you as well.
Any other questions for Mr. Knoll or for Mr. Bucus? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Knoll, for your presentation and the time you took with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Moving on the agenda to item number 10, discussion of ordinance 2017-84, an ordinance amending Title 8 Parking, Chapter 480, Parking Generally, of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport. Manager Crow.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, at the request of the council, we went out. I have distributed the ordinance. Actually dropped a couple off personally, but also had FTDF and the chamber distribute this out to the business. Businesses' comments were coming back to FTDF. They've gotten 16 comments back, basically from the business owners who own the apartment owners. Really like the fact that their apartment can stay downtown, but the business owners have asked basically and I've talked with the police chief, their request is from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 in the evening. We discussed it this morning. We feel that if we add in basically from 8 o'clock in the morning to, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, we said 6 o'clock in the evening was what we talked, 5 or 6, to add that section into this ordinance as we go forward. We believe that we can allow people to park downtown that are living downtown, but also give the parking spaces available for the businesses down there to be cleared. And we already have a placard process to allow people to park. And Dovey and I have gone over and looked at that placard process. They have to come in once a year and register for those placards. And then rather than parking in the parking lot, they would be able to park except for snow emergencies. Director Dole has asked 72 hours to clear the sidewalks and the areas, and then odd and evens to clear and sweep the streets.
You gonna be able to police that, Chief?
there's always going to be some problems with that, and I think that as we go forward, we can maybe work through those. Yeah, it's going to be challenging, but you know, I don't see it being, you know, a huge deal. We'll work with the community and the downtown folks, and
You gonna send Ted to training?
yeah, Ted's getting an earful already from people on either side of that, but you know, I can see that there's always, you know, and I talked to Lowell about it, and he thinks I think a little differently, like a police officer, of how they can get around that. But you know, I think that whatever the council sets forward, that we'll do our best to make sure that everyone's happy with this.
Discussion.
Well, here's how I look at the issue is this isn't a severed arm. If it doesn't work or if it becomes chaotic, we change it back. So let's give it a shot.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister.
Kind of the same sentiments as Alderman Chesney to an extent. If we're going to develop downtown and stuff, we almost have to try something like this, because the type of direction and development that they're looking at downtown is not going to work unless we do something like this. So I think we need to move it forward.
Is that a motion, Alderman?
Yes.
Is there a second?
It's already set for second.
Oh,
reading.
it is, right.
Yeah. This was more presenting the findings of it than the modification. So I'm going to, at the recommendation of Chief, we're going to put a modification in here from basically saying that they're not allowed to park during business hours from the hours of 8 to 6.
Chair.
Alderman McLennan.
Yeah, I assume when you say not allowed to park, you mean under the same regular restrictions. If it's a 15-minute spot, it's a 15-minute spot. If it's a 2-hour spot, it's a 2-hour spot. Yeah, that's reasonable.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Keister.
Just out of curiosity, you, Director or City Manager Crow, you mentioned about the placards and stuff. I'm presuming those are going to be also used to determine the people that are there when they're not supposed to. Are these going to be something they hang in their window or stick on their window? And if they just hang them in the window, what's keeping them from just moving them out and staying there anyway?
Well, currently they are placed in the window. They're not stickers. And I know I've had feedback from a couple of the aldermen that don't like the stickers because of the windows. So I initially had talked about going stickers until I got some feedback that people don't like stickers on the windows. I'm willing to go either direction on this.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Clem.
One thing about putting it on the rear view mirror, you could put it on the rear view mirror of whatever car you're driving. If you've got more than one, it's only good for one car. So if you want to buy two, go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman.
Thank you, Alderman Clem. That was precisely my argument with the placard, because there are two sets of business owners that live downtown. They have 2 cars, one in and out outward lot, unloading groceries, and then that way, if they needed to have the other vehicle to haul a piece of furniture, they could switch that placard. There again, one placard, that's all they get.
The placard, though, it strikes me as useful only for parking after business hours. And then during business hours, there's really no way to differentiate a customer of one of the downtown businesses from a tenant upstairs.
Other than the fact that they have to move, that there's a limited amount of time you can park down there.
2 hours.
2 hours. Okay. Any other discussion?
Good luck, Chief.
Seeing none, let's move on. Item number 11, an unnumbered ordinance adopting a policy prohibiting sexual harassment for the city of Freeport, and presented by Manager Crow.
And thank you, and I may ask for attorney, the attorney, Roxanne, to step in every now and this on it. So we had a lot of discussion on this. This is kind of, we're in the process of reviewing, and in fact, you have copies here of the new handbook as we go forward. In November, the Illinois legislature passed an ordinance or regulation dealing with sexual harassment. IML the last week in November, sent out their interpretation of the policy, and that's what we're going to recommend adopting. It does change our policy, and this will be in the handbook themselves, but they're recommending us adopt a separate ordinance to follow under state legislation, state requirements. And this, because we also felt that this has to be adopted by the 15th of January, we're not going to be ready to, we're presenting the handbook tonight at the COW, but I want everybody to have 30 days to get feedback to me on changes. So this will be presented at the next council meeting and then approved the first meeting in January. And it follows, basically changes the things that are dealing with prohibit for retaliation for reporting sexual harassment, violating regulations and violating the sexual harassment, and knowingly consequences for knowingly making a false report. Is there anything else you'd like to?
I don't have anything additional to add. Actually, I'm sorry, one more thing. There was a question that was raised regarding whether or not the new legislation required training for elected officials, and it does require training for those who serve in the state legislature and the executive branch, but it does not extend to municipal officials. So the only requirement on municipalities is that this ordinance be passed by the date required in January.
So is this up for first reading then on the next meeting?
Yes, that's where I'd like to move it.
Is there a need to get a motion from this committee to get it there? Or?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Alderman Clanathan, seconded by Alderman Chesney. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 12 on the agenda is discussion of another ordinance amending Title 10 employment provisions, Chapter 290, compensation and benefits, also presented by Manager Crow.
So in the review of our handbook and also the ordinances within the city, we realized that we were still offering comp time for our employees. And it also was establishing a level for overtime at grade 21, which is different from a pay purposes than the FSLA requirements. So this puts us in alignment with FSLA requirements for our non-union employees, and also takes this comp time out. Comp time is a dying entity that only typically municipal unions have anymore in their contracts. This removes comp time from that as we go forward from our ordinances, and cleans up our ordinances to match what we're going to propose in our handbook.
So pay grade 21s, that's sergeants in the police and lieutenants in the fire.
So the two things that'll be happening with it, because we've talked about that, is this affects from the chief to sergeants. We're going to propose a letter similar to what we're doing with the captains on in this with dealing with comp time. He does use comp time so they can testify in court and do some of their training, but we do not feel that should be, the standard should be we are not going to offer comp time anymore.
Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Bradshaw.
Thank you. So Manager Crow, basically this just meets with compliance of most municipalities, and the exceptions are police and fire. Is that correct?
That is correct. This meets with, it also gets in line with the current federal Fair Labor Standards Act, which sets a level for, we establishing currently in grade 21, but if you're in supervisory position or you're a professional under the Fair Labor Standards Act, you should not be receiving overtime or comp time. The only people who should, so what that does is that establishes people that are carrying like certified public accountants are considered professionals. Any of our director or manager level do not receive overtime or comp time. Currently, our current ordinance is the way it's written. If you're grade 21 or below, it doesn't make any difference. So that changes that standard.
I'd like to make a motion to move it forward.
Second.
Any other discussion? So this won't have an effect on our overtime budget in all departments?
Well, what happens was with the overtime, currently fire and police already budget their overtime
Right.
accordingly. All other departments will have to, it's the department head will approve it, ultimately the approval comes to me, but initially it'll have to be given an up check by the department head and then come to me and say, this person has to have overtime. And we understand there may be, like when we're getting ready for the audit, Michelle may need to have to stay, the two junior accountant, the junior accountant and Michelle may have to stay here extra hours or come in to get and that's authorized. And we budget accordingly. But this does not, just on a regular basis, we have people that are going and getting comp time if they attend another council, not the council meeting, but say they go to the library board or they go to appear at a planning board. They're filing for comp time.
And moving forward, they would do that without any form of compensation, comp time or overtime.
Well, it puts people in the supervisory level will not get comp time. There are currently some members in the supervisory level and professional level that are getting comp time.
Attorney Sosnowski wanted to add a little input there.
If I could, that would be great. This ordinance, as it's drafted, what it does is it removes the specific language that would have otherwise been included in your ordinance as it relates to overtime and places that information in the employee handbook, which is really where it belongs. So what I've seen since I've been here at the City of Freeport is a lot of your employee-specific details and data as it relates to policies and benefits overall, they are included in your ordinances, and then you also have this employee handbook from 2007, and they don't match, okay? So the purpose of this ordinance is to take this language out of the code and put it in your employee handbook, so that your employee handbook will then be the one document that all employees that are non-bargaining look to with regard to what their compensation and benefit structure is. Setting aside for the moment that there will be perhaps some separate side agreements as it relates to specific personnel, specifically captains in the fire department or perhaps sergeants in the police department. That will be dealt with separately, just like we would with our collective bargaining agreements for our bargaining staff. But the true purpose of this ordinance is to strip down all of the extra added language that you have in the code that in some instances is not even accurate anymore and is different than the 2007 employee handbook that you currently have on the books. So this ordinance itself should track along with your employee handbook, and when your employee handbook is taken up and approved by the council, this ordinance should be right there beside it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderwoman Bradshaw and a second by Alderman Keister to move it forward. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item number 13, discussion of an ordinance
For the handbook.
addressing specifically
This
the
is
handbook.
for the handbook.
And by-
So we still have a few, so this has been gone through by all the department heads, and it's been gone through by myself and then Roxanne as we go forward. And it's our proposal. We believe we've captured, there's still everything, all the desires that we have going forward, and also met the current requirements for language. Our last handbook was not updated since 2007. Typically, you should review your handbook every year and update at least every other year because of change in federal language. So this brings it forward to that. Some of the big changes that we did do, as I talked about, was changing overtime, doing away with comp time, and changing that to overtime and putting that onus on the department heads and the city manager. It's also bringing in does move the sexual harassment ordinance in here, and then changing to city manager form of government and dealing with grievances and other items in here. We did give you a red line document of that, so you have the full. We decided that was easier because there are huge sections that we have changed in this. We had originally talked about giving you a memo and realized the memo would probably be as big as the document itself. So just give you the red line document to begin with. So I ask you to, we're going to put this on the agenda for this 8th of January. I ask if you have any changes for first reading. That's when we're going to go 8th of January. If you have any changes, to get those back to myself and then Roxanne, and I'll give those changes to Roxanne. Her paralegals making the final documents. The other big change in here, it does establish a code of ethics for city employees, and it used that as the ICMA basis for it with some modifications. International Community and County Management Association, but made some changes in that so that in dealing with that, and that should establish a standard by which the city employees operate on a day-to-day basis. Roxanne, is there anything else you'd like to add with that?
Just one more thing to add. After the employee handbook has been through at least first reading, we do have an obligation under our collective bargaining agreements to share the draft with the unions for their, for purposes of their knowledge of the fact that we're going to be changing some of these work rules or policies. We're required to do that under at least our police, contract, and fire, I believe. I'm not 100% sure with AFSCME. But at any rate, I would suggest that it be sent to all three. 9 times out of 10, in my experience, once we send these on, we don't ever get any feedback because there is language throughout the entire employee handbook that to the extent that a policy or procedure conflicts with the collective bargaining agreement, the collective bargaining agreement will obviously take its place. But again, it just is one of those requirements of something that we have to do. So I know I've spoken to Lowell about that, and the city manager does intend to take care of that in the in-between time from first reading and then final passage.
Okay, so it's on the agenda for discussion. I presume you would like to wait to move this forward until you get any suggestions we have or for additions or edits?
My plan right now is to put it on the 8th of January, which we're going to talk about the proposed schedule here. Okay. The 8th of January. So with council's approval, I'd like to put it on the first reading on the 8th of January. That will give us 4 weeks to get your comments back to us. One request is after you get your comments back to us, we'd like to collect the red line documents back up, and then we'll give you some of the documents back out.
Any
Mr. Chair.
discussion on this proposed ordinance? Alderman Keister.
Yeah, I guess, kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, is if we're going to do it the first of January, it's probably going to be held over on the second meeting so we can vote on it in February, because some of the unions won't be meeting by then. So, if that makes any sense.
Well, I actually have to present it to them after a first reading.
Okay.
So, and it's, correct me if I'm wrong, they don't have to vote on it, do they?
No, they don't vote on it. No, we have to provide them notice of a change in a work rule. And then if they want to discuss anything in the document with us, then we have to make time available to have that discussion. I don't anticipate that happening. I haven't had that happen. Perhaps it'll happen here, I don't know. But in my experience, typically once we send a copy of the employee handbook out to them, we let them know this is the day in which the council is going to take action. Let us know if you have any concerns or if you have any questions or things that you want to talk about ahead of time. They'll have adequate notice and at that time to be able to have the opportunity to speak with the city manager about it. In the event that there is a request for a meeting, instead of voting on the employee handbook at the second meeting in January, perhaps then it would have to be moved to the first meeting in February to allow time for that.
Okay, thank you. I understand better now.
So no action on this tonight? Okay.
Right. I
Unless
do
there's
need a
discussion.
motion to put it on the agenda for the 8th.
So moved.
So moved. Or second. Sorry.
It's moved by Alderman McClanathan, second by Alderwoman Brashaw to move this as an action, or as a first reading item on the January 8th meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item 14 on the agenda is a discussion on a proposed ordinance to amend Part 2 Administrative Code, Title 8 Boards, Commissions, Bureaus, Chapter 274 Airport Commission, and other sections of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport regarding the Freeport Albertus Municipal Airport, presented by City Manager Crow.
So in the reviewing of the codes, as we go forward, as you realize, we're looking at what commissions and boards that we have to, that are required under state statute and are not required under state statute. And as you are aware, from council is the chairman of the Airport Commission resigned 3 weeks ago. We were already looking at this, and I've actually I included with you a memo from our attorneys. Because it is a municipal airport, we are not required to have an airport commission. This would move Daryl, and he would be moving in from working for the airport commission. He would move into a department head spot. He is already attending our department head meetings, but he would be reporting to me, or if we designate later another department head, the FBO would be reporting under that once we do away with the airport commission. There is no requirement for us to have an airport commission under the current state ordinance, state guidelines, and it's our recommendation that we go ahead and do away with the airport commission, bring it together as one body and as a single entity working for the city managers, the other department heads. Is there anything else you'd like to add to this? All right.
Discussion. Alderman Chesney.
Chair. Mayor Miller, are you given that you have oversight over the commission, are you in support of this?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. We've had plenty of discussions with the previous chairman, and Manager Crow and I have talked a lot about it.
Chair.
Alderman Clanathan.
Thank you. Manager Crow, you indicated that under currently the type of airport that we have, that we don't have to have a commission. What are the parameters that are met or have to be met for when you do have to have a commission?
So we have to have an airport authority. It's a requirement if you have an airport authority. Typically, an airport authority is operating when it's an independent airport that is operating for commercial aircraft. And we're similar to the Rockford Airport, Champaign Airport. They're independent Springfield, where they have actually airport authorities, where we are a municipal airport.
Follow-up, Chair.
Certainly.
Are there any circumstances in the foreseeable future whereby we'd be going to that independent airport model versus municipal model?
At this time, I do not see with the assets we have, I don't see us doing commercial style operations at our airport. We may have industry move out there, but the chances of us getting UPS, FedEx, or getting a commercial airlines in and operating is slim.
Okay. And so bottom line, under what we currently have, there's no need, there's no statutory requirement or anything like that to have a commission. And if things were to change in the future, then you would have to be looking at a commission.
That's correct.
It would take a referendum. I believe an airport authority is its own unit of government. So it's its own taxing body. It has its own governing board, which is the airport authority. It has its own legal counsel. It operates as its own entity. Okay. My suspicion in this case here in Freeport is that your airport authority was just formulated as an advisory body to the council, but it doesn't have any legal authority under the Illinois state statutes.
Further discussion?
Motion to move it forward.
We have a motion to move forward by Alderman Chesney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Clem. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, discussion regarding moving January meetings ahead by 1 week. City Manager Crow.
So the clerk and I, when looking at the schedule, figured out that we were going to have, the meeting was occurring on the 2nd of January after 2 4-day weeks. And additionally, it would also put our second council meeting of the month on a Tuesday as well, after a 3-day weekend. So we are making a recommendation to move the meetings to the 8th, and make sure I get my calendar here right in front of me. It's the 8th and the 16th, or the 8th and the 22nd, and the CAL on the 16th. Now the CAL would occur on Tuesday after Martin Luther King, and this allows us to keep 2 Mondays and avoids having us trying to put together an agenda as well over the Christmas holiday.
Now, we don't take action in committee level on this. This has to go to, yeah.
It's just a recommendation.
Any further discussion on, any discussion at all about changing the meeting dates in January?
We will send out a special notice on this, so.
But we do have to take some official action in a regular business meeting on, yeah. So is there a motion to move it to the agenda next week?
So moved.
It's moved by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Busker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, and we're now moving to the segment on public comments. Mr. Lehman, you were indicating you wanted to defer your comments. You have the floor, sir, for 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Mike Lehman. I reside in Lena, and I'm a citizen of the Freeport region. I'm a customer at Freeport Albertus, where I rent a hangar and maintain an airplane for my personal and business use. I'm speaking tonight in support of the capital improvement program that was presented earlier, the roadway project. We all recognize that Freeport is an economic hub of a larger region and includes all of Stevenson County and parts of at least 4 other surrounding counties. The city relies on this fact today, and it will rely on that regionalism to grow into the strategic vision your council adopted just last week. Citizens of this region do a lot of business here. They pay a lot of sales taxes to the tune of about $7.5 million a year. These consumer taxes compromise about half of your $18 million budget. The city's strategic vision recognizes that outside investment, not just in Freeport, but in the entire region, needs to occur. Outside investment in Freeport region provides jobs for residents. They in turn spend their earnings in Freeport businesses. And without this investment, the region's populations will shift to where the jobs are, resulting in declining property values, property taxes, and most importantly, to your budget's sales taxes. The airport is an important infrastructure to the region's economic development engine, in the same way that roads, libraries, schools, and parks are. The airport does not exist just for those of us who base our aircraft there. It exists as a front door to the visitors from outside the region, visitors who come here to buy goods and services, explore and open new business opportunities, and conduct commerce. The latest economic benefits study calculated direct and indirect annual economic benefits to the Freeport region in excess of $5 million. Somebody asked a question about that earlier. If you're interested in that study, it's called The Economic Impact of Albertus Airport and was commissioned by the Illinois Department of Transportation. Corporate executives, businessmen, and developers travel to our region in general aviation and corporate aircraft. The ability of Albertus Airport to handle these aircraft is an important consideration for their continued interest in the Freeport region. Albertus is the front door to the region and is the first impression these potential investors get when they arrive. The Illinois Department of Transportation has approved grant funding to a significant improvement, in other words, the roadway project. The roadway project would make Albertus more impressive to those travelers who arrive in Freeport and form their first impressions, but more importantly, it opens the door to economic development by making land available to new businesses at the airport and shows outside investors that Freeport is business friendly, making investments in its own future and pursuing its strategic vision for growth. The project would cost $1.1 million, 90% of which would be covered by state grants. I don't know any place else in the entire universe where you can get that kind of funding offer. The funding is available now, but the offer is time limited. Please do not let this opportunity pass by, because quite frankly, it is it's directly in line with the strategic vision that you guys have outlined in your documents from last week. I have one more comment, and that's in light of the discussion we just had about eliminating the airport commission. I am concerned that your customers will lose an opportunity to communicate with the airport authorities. Whatever your ultimate decision is on this issue, please make a provision for an open dialogue with us stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Your timing is impeccable. Ms. Scott? Okay. Please take the podium.
Rhonda Scott, 134 North Harlem. I came to speak about the parking issue, but thankfully you got that resolved because I was hearing a lot of rumble about residents parking for 24 hours in front of a business, and I said, I just don't believe that's true, so it's fixed. But I did hear the airport presentation, and what I came away hearing was that the city of Freeport has to pay a certain amount of money to keep that going, and that I also heard that there's only about 50 or 60 commercial jets that are coming in per year. I don't know if I heard that wrong, but that's what I wrote down. And it seems like we're spending a lot of money for that kind of traffic, and I'm just not seeing how that's really helping the majority of Freeport residents. I don't really understand why we're even continuing to fund this as a municipal airport. It's a leftover from World War II, and it's kind of been maintained here because we have we had some commercial aircraft coming in here, but truthfully, a lot of the jobs had left Freeport, and the airport hasn't had anything to do with it. So we really need to think about, with limited resources, whether we can continue to fund that with taxpayer dollars. And I also don't believe that federal transportation grants or state transportation grants are free money, because that comes from us one way or another. And you know, there's a lot of transportation needs in the state of Illinois, and I just don't feel that it's justified to spend tax dollars on an airport that's basically turned into a recreational airport, which comes to my point that, you know, there are other creative ways to fund a recreational airport. I have a boat. I pay about $3,500 a year just to keep it stored. It's either in the water or it's dry docked. I didn't hear any mention about what they're charging for hangars, but I did hear that it's often less than a storage unit on land. So I want you to kind of think about that possibly when this has become such a recreational use, and even businesses that are using jets and storing them here, and out-of-state people are flying in and out, and it's great that you can come here and get a cheap hangar. You know, maybe we just shouldn't be funding this with taxpayer dollars. And maybe there is a way that it could be more private funded, just like, you know, if you have any craft, you have to be responsible for the storage and the maintenance, and you really shouldn't be relying on taxpayers to fund your hobby. So that's my point of view as a taxpayer. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Anyone else from the audience? Tom?
I can ask you a question. You gonna check about that car there by Seminos?
Oh, the car by Amigos?
Seminos. You said something about right by the.
Yes, I'll go by there tomorrow and check those vehicles out for you.
I just wanted to tell you about that because that's Barry. You'll get a fine for that or something.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
And Todd Bago, I want to tell you, you did a good job doing the police chief, and how you like that thing over by the old Farmer Feet. Did you see it?
Casey's?
Yes.
Yeah, it's coming along. It's really coming along.
You think it'll be open in February?
Yeah.
And Joey Miller, you do a good job speaking, and we want to keep you for mayor for forever.
Thanks, Tommy.
And we'll know when you're going to come up to St. Vincent to see us.
You have them give me a call. We'll put it on the calendar.
Yeah, Michelle Littleton wants to know that.
Okay, have her call me.
All right.
All right, is there? Yes, sir. Please step to the podium, yep.
I'm Jack Hooker. I own Hooker Custom Harness, and it's a worldwide business based in Freeport. 25 years ago, I was invited by the city, or the airport commission at that time, to, why don't you move your business out to the airport? Well, they had a package called reversion. We've gotten rid of it now, but it's still pretty hard to live with. It's, you build the building to our specifications. You pay the taxes. You do the maintenance. You do this. You do that. And at the end of 20 years, you give us the building. Not too many small outfit companies can do that. The other part of the problem was there was absolutely no infrastructure available for a small business to operate at the airport. No roads, no communications, no power, light, gas. Oh, you can put all that in. No. You want to get something going, you got to have some infrastructure in place, ready, you know, like shovel ready. You go down Interstate 90 going into Ohio, you'll see big billboards says, shovel ready sites ready for business. We don't have that here. Think about it, folks.
Thank you, sir. And with that, we've reached the end of our agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone else in the audience want to be heard before I? Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Graham Bradbury. I live out in Winnebago. I am a tenant at the airport. I've lived in Winnebago for about 32 years, and I live approximately halfway between Rockford Airport and Freeport Airport. And I choose to maintain the airplane at Freeport. I learned to fly in Freeport, keep the airplane here, and really enjoy the services provided by the airport and the FBO. I understand that it costs money to maintain an airport and the infrastructure. I believe the infrastructure, as has been discussed by several tonight, is critical and important to the operation of the city and to the future of the city. You can undoubtedly survive without an airport, but I think you can do better if you have an airport. And a lot of the benefits have been discussed tonight. Today, clearly, the cost of running the airport is borne by several constituencies, including the taxpayers of the city and the tenants of the airport, amongst others. Visiting people who come in and are paying for services, they're also contributing to the operation of the airport. Obviously, the lower the cost to the city, the better. And the way to get that cost, the net cost of the city down, is to increase the revenues. If you increase the revenues, then obviously you've got an opportunity to get down towards net zero. Now, the only way you can increase the revenues for the business, for the commercial operations there, is to open up the infrastructure of the airport, hence the criticality of the road project. Now, you could do that road project any time. It doesn't have to be done this year. It could be done next year. It could be done the year after. But unfortunately, it appears that we're in a situation where the great deal that's on the table, the $1 million investment, is now or maybe never. So that puts everybody in a bit of a bind. We don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time to come back at this. You either do it now or it gets tabled for whenever. And if 2 years from now you choose that now is a better time, it could be costing a lot more money because that investment clearly is no longer available. So I think it's unfortunate that it's kind of compressed into this 5-month window that Darrell was talking about earlier, but that's the reality we're faced with. And I personally would urge you to think about taking the bull by the horns, and I think as one of the pilots down there, I know talking to my colleagues, we stand ready to try and help with regards to planning of what opportunities might there be to raise this money or whatever. I would caution to be too optimistic about the thought of it coming from individual pockets outside, from a limited number of individual pockets, because that's probably not very practical. But I do believe that we've got 4 or 5 months here that there's an opportunity to work together to figure out how we can make it come to fruition.
I'm sorry.
If you go down,
I'm sorry, sir, your time has expired, so if you can finish in just one sentence.
absolutely. In terms of though, if you bring it down to just thinking you can make it on the back of rents, hangar rents, there's only so far you're going to go, and that's going to be downhill spiral into a very probably predictable outcome. And I don't think that's going to look too good. Anyway, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And with that, we have finally reached the end of the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Alderman Keister, seconded by Alderman Chesney. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, stand adjourned.
Hey, sorry to hear about your friend.